Well, hello, Keller Williams and guest, everybody watching on Connect Live and on Pivot Shift Ahead. It's your friend James Shaw. And boy, I'm so excited that you're with us. We are going to spend some time together this afternoon and again tomorrow afternoon going through a shift workshop. And I'm honored that of all the things that you could have chosen to do today, you're going to spend time with us as we walk through what's going on in this crazy time in real estate and how can you make sure you win year in and year out. And that's what we're going to talk about here over the next couple of days. Again, I'm excited here. We have people literally watching from all over the world. I saw George is watching from Malaysia where it's 2 o'clock in the morning. So George and everyone at KW Malaysia, thanks for getting up early and watching with us. I so appreciate that so much. And of course, as always, everything we do on Connect Live and in Pivot Shift Ahead is automatically recorded. And so you can always go back and watch. In fact, what you're watching today will be available immediately. As soon as our broadcast ends, you'll be able to watch it in Pivot Shift Ahead. And then I know George and our team at Connect Live will get it flipped around and on Connect within the next couple of days. But you can always watch it right in Pivot Shift Ahead. And we're going to have a great time talking to experts about the market, about how you can take advantage of it, about ways to take more listings in one of the tightest seller markets in history, about how to educate your buyers so that you write fewer offers to get them under contract. We're going to talk about how to keep stuff together because right now we're hearing about 20% of contracts are falling out. So we're going to talk about how to bulletproof. And I'll tell you, it's going to be a big deal. You know, if you have the book, and I've got the Shift book right here, and this is an OG copy, right? This is an original. And on the original, you can see it says, it's not about the market. It's about what you do. You know, when Gary and Jay and Dave wrote this book in 2008, we were entering one of the toughest buyer markets in history. I was a team leader then in Cary, North Carolina. We had 110 associates in our market center at that time, which was a little bit under the average size of a market center. And 60-ish days later, we had 89 people. 89 people in our office because the market had changed and so many people didn't know what to do or how to respond. Now, those 89 people got to work, right? We studied the Shift book like this. We had them in bold. In fact, we had at one point in the fall of that year, we had half of our market center enrolled in bold, and we went on to have the best fourth quarter that market center had ever had up to its history. And yet what we were able to do was grow market share because we did the right things. Well, now my guess is most of you were not in real estate in 2008. In fact, I want you to put in the chat right now, how many years have you been in the real estate business? Actually, do this. Put what year you got into the real estate business. Was it 2010, 2011, 2012? Put what year you got in the real estate business in the chat. Because if you got in the business 2011 or later, it's been a seller's market nearly the entire time you've sold houses. 11 years of a seller's market. And here's what we know, though. What goes up must come down. You won't always have 643 people sitting at your open house and 73 offers come in on it and listings going like this and people waiving appraisals and not doing inspections and all the whoozy whatsies that are going on right now. Someday it'll take you 10 listings to sell one. But the truth is you'll always sell if you're doing the right things. And today is all about helping you do the right things. That's what we're going to jump in and do. We have experts here who are absolutely going to help us do that. Now, when we talk about a shift traditionally, what we tend to think about is some sort of economic shift. And there's a lot of things happening economically. You know, you don't have to go far to go see what's happened to gas prices, for example. Just the gas station 2 blocks from where I'm sitting right now, it was $3.75 2 days ago. It was $4.15 this morning. Affordability is changing. You've got uncertainty with what's going on in the Ukraine and with Russia. You've got the Great Resignation where people are resigning from their jobs and not going back to work. We're still in a pandemic. I mean, there's all this stuff going on. There's so much uncertainty. And yet you can control what it is that you do every day. Truth is, though, any of those things could lead to some type of economic shift. And that's the one we're usually used to. George, let's show them the graphic because there are lots of things that can impact it. Mortgage rates could absolutely impact it. You know, the mortgage rate stuff has been all up and down over the last couple of weeks, and the Fed would like to raise the rate, and then the what's going on with Russia and Ukraine's kind of forced it down. And yet, if you go look at it, they're still historically low. And yet, if all of a sudden we went to a 6% interest rate, that would have an impact on what's happening for real estate business, even though 6% is historically low. Home prices, hey, come on. I mean, I know you're complaining a lot of times about how much it costs to fill up your tank, but you're not complaining about how much equity you've picked up in your home over the last couple of years. And yet, as home prices continue to climb and rates continue to go up, rents rather continue to go up, then we run into an affordability challenge. Inflation could have an impact too. Tax reform, this was a couple of years ago that tax reform was having an impact. So there's lots of different things that could cause a challenge for us economically. And yet, here's what we have to remember. People are always looking to buy or sell. And so if you go into the shift book, and you don't need a copy of it, but if you have one, you can totally grab a copy. And what it says is this. He says, even though this is page 15 of the shift book, and I'll always try to give you page numbers, but Gary and Jay and Dave say on page 15 that even though you know that history repeats itself, in order to profit from it, you have to remember it. Well, today we're going to help you profit from it by going through specific strategies that you can implement right now that will help you take advantage of the market we're in, and then help you take advantage of the market that's coming. Gary Keller said one time to me, he said, the only way to get ahead is to act like the market that's coming, not the market you're in. And some of us right now, we wake up, we bump into somebody at the coffee shop and they go, oh, I'm going to sell my house. And you go, awesome, let's put a sign in the yard. And then you get 3 offers in 5 minutes and it's under contract. And those days won't happen forever. They certainly won't. So let's get started. I'm excited about it. We're going to jump into our first guest right now because he's here and he's awesome and he's a genius when it comes to the numbers. So I'm honored and excited that Jim Talbot would join us. Jim's the director of research for Keller Williams Realty International. And Jim, you're one of the highlights every week or every month in Connect Live and on Pivot Shift Ahead because you talk about numbers and data and what's happening. And I'm excited you're going to spend some time with us today because here's the thing. We've got to have some perspective about what's happening. And I find so many real estate agents aren't aware of what's going on in their market, which prevents them to making good decisions when it comes to working with potential buyers and sellers. And so, Jim, thanks for being on. You want to introduce yourself real quick and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, and then we'll get started.
Sure. I'm Jim Talbot. I lead the research team at Keller Williams, and we do a lot of work helping to bring together economic and housing industry trends. We do competitive work and really try and explain and help the market. As James said, I do a show on Connect every month, Market Update, where we talk about the economic and housing trends at a national level. And, I can't agree more with what he just said about how important it is to know those numbers and understand. James, one of the things I tell the agents all the time is, I'll give them some information about the national picture, but they've got to marry that up with their local numbers and, have a source for that. Talk to your team leader if you don't, but it's really essential. And so thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here today. I am so impressed there are people up at 2 a.m. local time watching us. That's just amazing.
It is amazing. Well, it shows you the desire to grow and get better. And so,
Absolutely.
Jim, as we start our conversation today, we're going to talk kind of some national numbers and what you notice, from a KWRI standpoint and across the country. It's important to remember that as we do that, what we're effectively saying today is that the average high in the United States is 65 degrees.
Right.
I'm in Tampa where it's going to be 80 today. I don't know what it's going to be in Austin. And we got people in Connecticut, it might be 34 degrees. So an average temperature in the US doesn't really mean anything locally. It gives you a perspective as to what's going on.
Right.
And looking at averages, from an international and national standpoint, gives you an idea. But like you said, it's really important that you go get the local numbers. And most of you, your MLS, your local board of realtors, does this for you on a monthly basis. So it's important that you go do that. Jim, let's talk about it because it's been a crazy couple of years. And quite frankly, if you rewind 2 years ago, the anniversary of the Pivot Shift Ahead community, where many people are watching this today, is March 16th. That's when this group started. And it started because, Jim, I thought the market was going to fall off the table when the pandemic hit because people were losing jobs. So unemployment was going to shoot up. The stock market was crazy. I just thought we might see an influx of inventory and people who couldn't buy. And that's not what happened. The opposite of that is what happened.
Right.
So we
had a couple of scary months there. Where the numbers were down. I saw pending numbers from NAR that I thought I would never see down in the 70s. But very quickly, everyone realized housing is an essential service. And agents were able to figure out, kudos to everyone for figuring out how to do it safely in a pandemic and get back out there. And what we saw was the pandemic brought a renewed focus on the home. If you're going to be spending all your time working and living in a home, it should be a good home. And, it should meet your needs. And we just saw unprecedented movement around the United States. Although there was a lot of unemployment that came with the shift, it wasn't equally distributed. And unfortunately, well, fortunately for us, but unfortunately for those people, it hit more harshly among people who weren't traditional home buyers anyway. Lower wage, tend to be service sector, hospitality and leisure, especially white collar workers, especially in finance, knowledge-based businesses, weren't really that touched. Unemployment never went much above 5% in the financial sector. And in fact, with people not spending money on vacations and entertainment, they plowed it back in the home. So it turned out to be some great months for us.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We saw a really weird April and kind of a weird May of 2020, and then it started to pick back up. And that's why I want to give this perspective is that, and this is what you shared with me as we were preparing, you don't really compare 2020 to 2021, you were telling me. Usually when you're going and doing a comparison, you pulled 2019. Let's talk about that.
So one of the things we saw, and it was because of the lockdown in the first couple of months, we saw seasonal patterns fall apart in 2020. So in what traditionally would have been a very hot May buying month, the lockdown was still in effect in a lot of places. People weren't going out looking at homes. There were still a few states who hadn't decided, Pennsylvania was one of the last, that real estate was an essential service. So you weren't able to show homes. You weren't able to bring people in. And what that did is it pushed a lot of the pent up demand from those months out to the second half. So we had very, very low lows in Q2 and then extraordinarily high Q4, among the best I've ever seen going back to even before the last Great Recession. So that threw seasonal patterns back off. They started to come back a bit in 21, and we really think they're going to be much more normal in 22. But the problem is you can look back, if you compare April 21 with April 2020, it looks like it was just the greatest market ever because of the gains. And it was a good market, but not that great. And this December was a sensational market, lots of sales. But when you compare it to December 2020, it's a decrease. So that could be a little bit misleading. I think 2019 was a very good, solid year, unaffected by the pandemic or any oddities. So if you're doing comparisons year over year, it's great to look at 2019. Now, remember, it will be a 2 or even at this point, a 3-year comparison, and you got to factor that in. But the seasonality is much more normal there.
This is going to be a more normal market if you compare it to 2019 than if you look at 2020. And of course, now, though, that we're in 2022 and you do year over year comparisons, we're more in an apples to apples type comparison as you look at 2022 versus 2021. Is that right?
By I would say May or April, I think, that it will be. There was still a little carryover of the extreme seasonality into the early part of last year. But by late spring, early summer, we're back to more normal patterns.
Okay, got it. All right. So as you look at research, this is what you do. You're director of research for the largest real estate company on the planet. So as you go and look at this stuff, what are the trends and things that you've noticed over the last couple of years that agents should know about and then would want to go look at in their own local markets?
Right. Well, I would, one of the things I'd always be very, very aware of is some of the numbers that we pay attention on a regular basis are at such extremes right now that they can actually obscure some of the things that are going on. And price appreciation is a perfect example of that. Prices are so high right now, and they're rising so quickly that you can actually see sales going backwards and prices still going up. And if you're just paying attention to prices, that'd be easy to miss that there could be something going on in a market or in a segment. So you've got to look at the broader picture. We're just seeing numbers that are the highest or lowest that we've ever seen. Inventory has never been lower. On a national basis right now, it's 1.6 million or 1.6 months worth of inventory. It's never been that low before. And at the end of January, which is the most current number, I think there were 870,000 homes available across the entire United States. I had never seen it before under 1 million before 2 months ago, and now it's down to 870,000. So these trends are so extreme, it's easy to miss things. So for example, if inventory went from 1.6 and doubled to 3.2, I wouldn't necessarily say that's the sign of a shift. That's still a very tight seller's market, and it's just inventory coming back to normal levels. So you've got to look at things in context.
Jim, you do. And in fact, on page 9 of the Shift book, Gary and Jay and Dave give us the definition of the different markets, a buyer's market, a balanced market, and a seller's market. less than 5 months worth of inventory is a seller's market. And I think this is an important warning to give.
Right.
Someday you're going to go log into your MLS and it's going to say, instead of saying 1.3 months worth of inventory, it's going to say 3.6 months worth of inventory. And some people are going to go, oh my gosh, everything is a Chicken Little sort of thing, right? Everything's changing in the market. Actually, you're still in an uber tight seller's market.
Exactly.
Homes should still be appreciating.
Up until the last 2 years, there had only been a handful of months where inventory had ever been below 4 months. So 3.2 is not panic level. Now, however, the reason you have to look at it in context, is it settling in at 3.2 or is it on a steady pace going upwards? The latter would be more concerning. You need to pay attention. The other thing I'd say in here is I get this question a lot. I get specific questions where my answer is always, again, 1 month does not make a trend. So someone will point a number to me and say, do I need to be concerned about this? And my answer is generally, well, I don't know. 1 month isn't a trend. You need to pay attention to this over time. So keep your eye on things, watch it. So as I said, if inventory rises from 1.6 to 3.2 months, that's good if it settles in there. More inventory. I mean, right now we know that next year sales are going to be held back by not having enough inventory. So 3.2 would be great. If it doubles again, then I'm starting to get concerned. And really, you have to get up to about 7 to 9 months for prices to come down.
Yeah, Jim, exactly. Thank you. And I'm sorry to cut you off, because if it doubled again, we'd be knocking on the door of 7 months worth of inventory. And now you're in a buyer's market, right? So
exactly.
That below 5 months is a seller's, 5 to 7 is a transition. We're moving from one to the other.
Right.
And then 7 months plus is a buyer's market. The transition tends to happen quick. You know, Gary in the book says that a shift, if you want to look at the definition of a shift, it's the transition from one market to another. That happens slow nationally. It happens very quick locally. So what I'm hearing you say is one number to watch is months worth of inventory. We want to pay attention to that number. We want to watch if it's growing or not. And then we want to watch the speed at which that number is growing, right?
Right. I think that's probably the best indicator to look at for early signs of a shift, because as inventory starts to pile up, it puts downward pressure on prices. You may see sellers holding their homes off the market if they think they're not going to get as much as they could have before. So that could really drive a market shift. Another thing I'd pay attention to is days on market. NAR tends to refer to this as pace of sales. And again, that's at extreme lows. And, I'll give you an example. In 2019, in January of 2019, the average property was on the market for 49 days in the United States.
Which is still super quick, for the record. That is still very fast.
Oh, that's very quick.
Yeah.
That was a great, solid year. Everyone was happy with that number. This past January, it was 22 days. Or I'm sorry, 19 days. So extraordinarily low. And again, if that were to go up to the 30s, that's not necessarily a sign of a shift. That's reverting to the norm. So,
Jim, when I got in the business, we were taking 2-year listing agreements in certain price points. I mean, we've got to put some context around this, right? There is a time that you could take a 30-day listing agreement. The average, which I am not recommending. So don't go out there and say James is saying take 30-day agreements. But the average days on market's 19 days. You're going to be just fine. But someday it's not going to be 19 days.
It's not going to be.
Right.
It's very rare for it to be 19. So I feel very comfortable in saying it's going to come off of that low as more inventory is out there. And that's not a bad thing. It gives buyers more time. It's less price pressure upwards. So we'd love to see it come up off of those lows. But that's why you have to have the context, and you really need to know your numbers. So what's the normal in your market, and how far are you off that normal? And if all you're doing is growing gradually back to the normal, I wouldn't be worried about that. It's when it's a sudden shift and it goes past the normal that you've got to be prepared for. Another thing, you need to look at segments of the market as well. So, for example, NAR breaks down by a variety of price points, and a $250,000 home, the normal time for it to be on the market is not the same as a $2 million home. So you need to know what are the differences for the different price points in your market, and especially the price points where your business is most centered. So I think that's a great one. You got to pay attention to that. List price and sale price. If you're in a strong seller's market, I live in Austin, Texas, and we're in a very strong seller's market right now. And it's perfectly normal for sale price to be the same or higher than the list price. in a multiple offer situation often gets bid up well above list price. As you see it shift more towards a buyer's market, you would expect that the sale price will actually be below the list price, because buyers will be able to, sellers will be competing for a limited number of buyers. So the trends there are very informative, but the important thing is to watch at a market level. Any one individual house, that could be the condition of the house, it could be, how well the negotiations went. You can't tell much from that. But looking at market trends, that's another good indicator that you can see.
So Jim, let's talk about that real quick, because I was surprised to see this. I had never seen it before, and I've been in the business 17 years. The county that I'm in, Pinellas County, Florida, which is Clearwater and St. Petersburg and other areas, the list to sale price here is like 101%. Like
Yes.
you go pull the average sale price,
Yes.
List price to sale price, it's 100%. Like I've never seen that. You might see 97 or 98 or whatever. It's 100. The price is the price, and so we want to watch that. An adjustment in that isn't necessarily bad or means a shift is coming. We are in a time period based on inventory and demand that I don't recall we've ever seen in the industry before.
I mean, again, I go back to before the Great Recession, and I've never seen numbers like this. And and I don't want to harp on this too much, but a reversion to the mean isn't something to be panicked about or worried about. That's why it's important to know a little bit of the historical numbers. I wouldn't be upset to see that down at 99%. That's a more normal number.
Right.
But when you're in Austin, where we hear horror stories all the time, well, from the buy side, 70 offers coming in on a property, that drives that price up, because buyers are competing for a scarce number of available properties.
Jim, we're going to talk to an agent tomorrow who had a listing near Atlanta that had 155 offers. So, when that happens, it's just the kind of market we're in. Okay, we have some questions from people watching in the chat. And the first question is a question I get a lot, and I think you probably get it a lot too. And that is this: when do you expect to see inventory start to double and then double and then double? And my answer is, if I knew, I wouldn't be doing a free class on the internet on a Wednesday afternoon, right? But what are your thoughts? Like, do we have any idea as to when we might see inventory start to pick back up?
So, I think we are going to see, as we get into the hotter summer selling season, inventory tick up from the record lows it's at now. Now, I don't see the inventory crisis going away in that period, but instead of 1.6, we'll probably get up into the twos, mid twos. Long term, to get back up to more normal levels where we really would like to see it in the 3s to 4s. Still a healthy, strong seller's market, but enough inventory that it doesn't limit sales and there's out there. My hope is that this year there will be a lot of new houses coming on the market. I had hoped to see that last year.
You're talking new construction, Jim?
New construction.
Yeah.
And although it's to some extent separate markets, it takes some of the pressure off. And I'd hoped to see that last year, but supply chain constraints had builders holding off on new starts because they didn't know whether they'd be able to finish them. There was a shortage of appliances, of finishing lumber, of roofing materials. And so we didn't see what we had hoped to see. One of the things I talk about all the time on the Connect broadcast is that, about half the independent builders in the United States went out of business in the fall of the Great Recession. And we're about 2 to 3 million homes short of where we would have been if we kept building at the historical norm. And that's one of the reasons why inventory is so low right now. So that's going to take some time to fix. But I would hope we will see inventory levels come up to about the mid to upper 2s, by summer, and maybe closer to 3 by the end of the year. But it's going to be a low inventory environment for a while.
All right. So we really don't, there is no, at least in the next year or so, we expect this to continue to be a hot seller's market, and you're going to take a listing and likely sell it very quickly. Now, the thing we've got, the point we've got to make, though, is, again, all of that is irrelevant to an individual agent. Just because you have historically low, and we should call it, I know Mark King gets very excited about this, Jim, we should call it active inventory, because last year was a top 3 or 4 sales year of all time or something like that, right? So you can't have record years of home sales and also have no inventory. Like those two things don't work. You can't sell inventory you don't have. What we have is historically low active inventory. You log into your MLS, and like you say, the average right now is 1.3 months. That means if we listed nothing, then in 1.3 months we'd be sold out. There'd be nothing left. So we've got to give, again, context this. We don't have historically low inventory. We have historically low active inventory. As Gary told us at Family Reunion, we're in instant sales right now. It goes on, it sells. Okay, here's a question that we got from Connect, and I love this question too, and we'll hear your answer, and then I'll give mine. Is one type of market better or worse than another? So is a seller's market better, a buyer's market better? What's your answer?
Well, I think that depends on your business. There's great opportunity in both of those markets. Neither one is, and again, I want to point out, even in any sort of shifted market, there's great opportunities. People build massive businesses in a shifted market. It's just you have to be prepared for it, you have to be ready for it, and you have to adapt your business to it. So I would say no. I think if all you do is represent buyers, then yeah, it would be easier to operate in a buyer's market. And if all you do is take listings, then yes, it would be easier to operate in a seller's market. Yeah. But for someone with a better mix in the business, there's opportunity in both.
Jim, a seller's market's better for a seller and a buyer's market's better for a buyer. So it depends on who you are. And what we have to remember is the market that you sell in is the market you buy in. So when we're out selling right now and you're making, you've added $200,000 or whatever it is in equity in the last few years, well, the house you're going to go buy costs more too. So you're going to participate likely in both of those markets. Okay, so what is I guess, what's the answer to some of the inventory challenge? What would you say agents need to be doing to help battle some of this inventory issue?
Well, we've seen anecdotally that sellers are reluctant to list if they are going to have to buy another house in that same market or another market. So addressing those concerns of helping them find inventory or a place to move to can be a part of that. I think there are a lot of people sitting on the sidelines. There's still some people we know from the pandemic who have been reluctant to list. I think it's reaching out to your sphere and having conversations with them, see what their concerns are and how you can address them. There's still an opportunity. I tell people all the time, I don't believe there's going to be a distressed property opportunity coming out of the pandemic because there's so much equity out there. But there are still about 800,000 people in mortgage forbearance, and some portion, though, unfortunately, probably won't be able to keep their home. But rather than going the distress route, they'll be able to sell, which is better for everybody. They don't have a bankruptcy or a black mark on their credit. They can become a homeowner. It's just going out and having conversations and finding out, what are their needs and what's holding them back, because there's usually answers to all of it. Getting them over fear of mortgage rates. You keep hearing mortgage rates are going to go up, and when you've only seen mortgage rates in the low 3 for a long time, a 4 can be intimidating, but that's, as you said, that's still a historically low rate. And we've seen a lot of business transacted with rates of 4, 5, and 6%. It's just an adjustment.
Jim, I bought my first house in 2009. I had a 3-year ARM at 9.25%. When I got the letter that said, would you like to refi this thing at 6% and a 30-year fixed? I mean, I ran to the mailbox and signed that paper. Right. And now if it was 6%, we would pass out. Mortgage rates would have an impact, right, on what's going to happen in the market.
They do. And I think it's, the media tends to treat that as a horror story, like rising interest rates are the end of everything. And I think that's an opportunity for you to go out to your clients and share your expertise and, help them adapt to that world. Same thing with affordability. That's going to be a problem. As rates tend to trek up a little bit over time and prices are continuing to soar, affordability is going to be a bigger issue. So helping people understand what that means, what opportunities are out there, helping first-time home buyers get in the market. I think those are all great opportunities to develop more business.
Yeah. All right. What's the final message, Jim? This has been great. So thank you so much. And by the way, the Facebook is blowing up about what a genius you are. So you do the you do the kind of your research piece the last Thursday of every month, right? It's on Connect, and we put it in Pivot Shift Ahead, so anybody can go back and watch it. Jim, what's the final message that you want to share with everybody who's watching?
So I'd always be looking for the signs of a shift. And I don't mean that at all from a pessimistic standpoint. The shift can be the greatest opportunity if you're ready for it, and you don't have to be reactive when it finally comes. So just pay a little attention to your numbers every month. And again, that means the national numbers and your local numbers. And look for something that could indicate a shift is coming so you can be ready for it. And I don't mean ready to survive it. I mean ready to thrive during it so you can really capitalize on the opportunity that any market brings.
Jim, I love it. Thank you for taking time out. I know you're busy. You got your abacus out, looking at all the different things and putting your stuff together. Jim, thank you so much for the time. We wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You got it. You got it. Hey, Jim gave you a great perspective on what's going on in the market. And again, it's a reminder, go study the numbers. And the numbers he suggested you look at are what's happening to months worth of inventory, what's happening to days on market. And then the other one is to look at your growth in units and look at your growth in volume. And I would recommend that for all of you. See, remember, in this business, you tend to be paid based on the purchase price, not the units of the transaction, right? It's not, the more the home sells for, probably the more money you make based on how you've set up to be paid. And so you go look at that and you see your volume's way up and your commission is way up, but you don't notice sometimes that your units might be flat or down. Ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you this, and I've always believed it, the number one indicator of the health of your own business is units. Go look at units first and figure out how many actual homes have you sold and how does that compare to your goal. And I would track that number above anything else because it's the only one you can control. You cannot control the volume that you do, and you cannot control the commission you're paid for it because it's oftentimes based on volume, but you can control how many units you sell. So go look at that number. Here's the next thing I'd recommend that you do is as you're doing a year-over-year comparison, Jim told us, go look and see, and he's saying compare it to 2019, at least for now. And then once we get into May, maybe you could start comparing it to 2021, but kind of just push 2020 to the side because it was a weird year. And what I would do is I'd go look and say, okay, how much is the market up in units? How much is the market overall, your overall market, up or down in units, up or down in volume? And then compare that to yourself. How much am I up or down in units and up or down in volume? Now, at a minimum, you want your growth to match the market's growth because that means the market's growing and so are you. But better yet, you'd like your growth to outpace the market growth. And here's why. If your growth is in alignment with the market's growth, then you're just riding the wave of the market, right? As they say, when the all boats rise, when the tide rises, and so on and so forth. And so the market's giving you business because it's good. But if you count on the market to give you business when it's good, well, then you have to count on the market to take it away when it's bad. And so I just want to make sure that you're studying these numbers on a monthly basis. And a little bit later today, we'll have Janelle and Haley from our enablement team inside of Keller Williams University who will walk you through what numbers you should track and how you can do it and how Command can help you do some of that. So you're in for a great treat when it comes to that today. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is look, let's get purposeful about the type of business that we're doing and going after the right people. Jim told you we've got historically low active inventory. So if you go out and get a listing right now, it likely sells. But my question for you is, where are you getting those listings? So we asked some of you to help us out. We said, tell us your top sources for listings. And we gave you, 11 or 12 choices. And you responded. And here's what we found. I'm going to give them to you in reverse order. And this is not scientific. This is just from the couple of hundred of you who answered this survey. And this is what you told us. And we said, give us the current motivations of sellers right now. A seller reaches out to you or you reach out to a seller and they say, we're ready to sell and here's why. What are the motivations? What's the why behind putting the house on the market? Number 10, you told us it was divorce. I don't know why we had to start out so negative, Grace. Grace is helping me with everything in the background. We're starting negative with divorce. By the way, we should now call that domestic restructuring. Just for the record, I would call it domestic restructuring. Okay, so number 10 was divorce. Number 9 was you had investors who were cashing out or doing a 1031 exchange. Number 8 was empty nesters. Number 7 was growing family. Number 6 was either they're aging out of the property, so maybe they're going to an independent living or something like that, or an estate sale. Number 5 was job relocation. Number 4 was downsizing, or they wanted less space. And then here are the top 3. Number 3, they wanted to move closer to family and friends. Well, that makes sense in a pandemic. I remember talking to a guy who had just moved from Tampa to Jacksonville, bought a house in Jacksonville. The pandemic hits and he realized he wanted to be closer to his dad, immediately sold his house in Jacksonville, came back to Tampa. People wanted to do that, wanted to be closer to family or friends. So that was number three. Number two was they wanted more space. They were upsizing their home because we're working from home and we needed more room and whatever. And then number one, they wanted to take advantage of the equity that's inside their home. Now, the reason why this is important is because this. If your job right now is to go out and find as many listings as you possibly can, then you want your lead generation strategy to match the market. In other words, if the top three are equity, upsizing, and being closer to family and friends, then what we want to do is make sure that our lead generation strategy is in alignment with finding people who want to be closer to family and friends, upsize for more space, or take advantage of the equity. We don't want to just make it up as we go. In Shift, it's called a MOFR. I just said that on TV. It's called a MOFR, and it stands for Make Offer for Immediate Response. Write down Shift page number 58. Again, I told you, you can download the little workbook, but I'll spend most of the time in the actual Shift book today and just write down little notes. Okay, you don't need the book in front of you. Just write down little notes. And here's what Gary and Jay and Dave said about it. He says, the first principle of lead generation is that your message must match your market. This means that your lead generation message must always match the motivation of buyers and sellers in whatever market you're in. Always follow this standard. It's how you cause motivation to show up and reveal itself. And that's where they talk about having a MOFR, which is, again, making offer for immediate response. In other words, what are you doing to engage somebody right now to respond to you in some way? Now, we've got some agents that have figured this out. I'm so excited about it. And I'm excited to invite them in to the conversation. So Chris and Scott and Irene are all here with us, and I'm so excited that they've chosen to join us today, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves here in just a second. And so, Chris, let's start with you. Chris, tell us who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about your business.
Okay, hi, Chris Ruskowitz. I am at the Keller Williams Milwaukee Southwest Market Center in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Started in 1994, so I've lived that recession. And my business is, I have a small team, rainmaker of a small team, and I'm also an investor and the managing broker. So I wear a lot of hats and had to figure out the best way to get the most listings in today's market and spend the least amount of time.
Well, and you're going to share a great strategy with us around the equity analysis today, which I'm really excited about. So thank you so much for being here. Scott, hi, welcome. Introduce yourself to everybody.
Hey, I'm Scott Schumann. I am Chief Operating Officer and partner in the Stu Adler team. We're based out of the Summit, New Jersey Market Center. We service pretty much everything an hour and a half outside of New York City. And we run a team of 36 at the moment. We'll be over 40 by month end, but 36 at the moment. And we really same thing as what Chris was saying. We are in an inventory deprived market. And we had to find a way to generate a lot of seller leads really quickly and bring a lot of people to the plate who are interested in selling their homes, so that way we could continue to feed the team business.
All right, so we're going to talk about what is all the new hot deal right now, and that is these seller seminars. Sue and her team and Scott, you guys, everybody there are doing a great job with that, so I'm excited about it. Thank you so much for being here. We'll talk about it in just a second. Irene, tell us who you are. Introduce yourself to everybody.
Thanks very much, James, and thank you so much for having me. Irene Kashansky from the KB Real Estate team at Keller Williams Portfolio Realty in Toronto. James, as you were talking to Jim, I did a really quick check of February stats in Toronto. Our average sale to list price ratio was 114%, and our average days on market was 13.
That's so Canadian, Irene. I just got to tell you, that's like the most Canadian thing I've ever heard. So things are hot, and you do a great job of really staying engaged with your database. You're very visible in the community, so you're in the know as to what they need, and we're going to talk about that with you in just a minute. Chris, I want to start with you because this has been kind of a big thing. And it started because I learned about it from Vishay. Vishay is a MAPS coach and a BOLD coach and runs a team in Houston. And she introduced me to the equity analysis. And Chris, we talked about it on a pivot call one morning. We do our 8 a.m. mastermind call, and you're always on that call. And we'd mentioned it one morning, and you really went after it. And then we challenged people this year to kind of do an equity analysis every day, get into a flow where you're sharing with your database the value of their home. It's been working, though, for you for a long time. Tell everybody a little bit about what is an equity analysis and what are your steps to engage people with it?
Of course, happy to share. Equity analysis is really basically a CMA along with a net sheet. So you are presenting to your clients saying, hey, let's do this. Let me show you what the purchase price would be in today's market, but then let's run that net sheet and show them the amount of equity they have right now, because they're shocked when they find out how much it is. They don't know it. So what happened is actually started with last year with the MOFR. And I sent out a letter and I just said, hey, what's your magic number? It wasn't an equity analysis at the time. It was, what's your magic number? Call or text if you want to know how much equity you have in your home.
And by the way, real quick, I got to interrupt because I think, if I remember, didn't you do that almost about a year ago? It was like the beginning of the baseball season. Is that right? Because you included a Brewers calendar magnet in that. Exactly. And that was and this is the thing people think. They go, well, I'm going to send out my Milwaukee Brewers calendar magnet because I want people to have the calendar magnet with my business card on it, and it's going to sit on the refrigerator. But that's not lead generation. There's no MOFR there. The MOFR was in the letter that you sent along with the magnet. The magnet was the excuse to send the letter. Is that right?
Correct. And I knew the day the letter had been delivered in the mail because my phone blew up. People texting me going, I want to know. Can you do this for me? That letter, over like 45 days of talking to people and doing the equity analysis, created 17 transactions. Because people reached out, they got the MOFR, we did the equity analysis, and I had so many people, just as your survey said, they either were looking for a bigger home because now they are working from home and now they have 2 kids when they didn't have any when they bought that home, or they wanted to move back, closer to family, all those things. And they were shocked to know that all of them could buy their new home without selling their existing home because of the amount of equity they have. So over time, I created a system. I'm like, you know what, this is working, but I have to be better at this. I have to create a system so that I'm consistent. So what I do now is I have a smart plan, and I use the DTD2, the Doing the Database 2 system, for connecting with my clients every quarter.
All right, so we got to tell people what that is. When we use our Keller Williams language, we have to break that down. So DTD2, this is from Steve Schlueter and Tammy Younks from their Never Ending Referrals program, or maybe you've heard it in bold. And this is, you've got 2 letters that you call every week by last name, right? So like last week was S and U week, and I know because I got a bunch of calls, right? So people called me, and I'm so proud of you for calling. And I don't know what it is this week, P&L or whatever letters it is this week. And so you're doing that. You're calling through the whole database. You're removing any judgment about whether or not they actually want to hear from you, Chris. If their last name starts with one of those 2 letters, you're calling them.
Correct. So the Friday prior to that next week's calls, they get a text from me. Okay, it's a check-in text. Hey, how you doing? I've been thinking about you. Oh, by the way, are you curious to know what the value of your home is in today's market? Then the MOFR's in there, let me know. Okay, call or text. I think you might be quite surprised. At the very least, you should know so that you can connect with your insurance agent and make sure that your homeowner's insurance has the right value, replacement value for you. That text message goes out on Friday.
Okay, and real quick, you're again doing it by these 2 letters, because if you sent to the whole database, you couldn't possibly handle the number of responses that came in. So you're spreading it out over 13 weeks.
Correct. So this is my first quarter call. Those that raise their hand, that I get a call or a text or an email going, yes, I would love to know. I do the market analysis, and if the equity analysis ahead of time, I just need to ask them how much their balance is on their mortgage.
Okay, so that sounds like a key step. Chris, I know I'm going to interrupt a lot because I always want to make sure we're getting the system, right? So Scott and Irene, be ready because I'm going to interrupt you too. I want to get the system. So step 1, send the text based on last name, they respond. So step 2 is you're preparing it ahead of time. And one thing you're asking is, hey, what, based on what you believe to be true, what is the current payoff? What do you owe on your house?
Correct. Then I prepare that. I have everything prepared. I start calling on Monday. I call those that raise their hand first. I also go through that group for the week and determine, based on what I know, who would be the most likely to make a move, to want to sell. And it might be someone that's been in their house for 5 years, someone that I knew was a first-time buyer 5, 6, 7 years ago, however many years. And that's the second group that I prepare the equity analysis for. And then I call them and say, hey, you know what? Thanks for reaching out. I've got everything ready. Do you have a few minutes? Let's get on a quick Zoom. Send them the link, get on the Zoom. If they're not ready at that time or they want their significant other or spouse, then we schedule a time and we get on the Zoom and go through the numbers. And without any exception, every single person I've done this for is shocked at how much equity they have. Shocked. And so what's happened by doing this system for this first quarter is we've got 14 listings, most under contract, some are still coming soon, 6 buyers.
Hold on, time out. You have 14 listings this quarter?
In this quarter, well, we've got 7 under contract, 2 that have closed, and the rest are under coming soon.
That you've taken from doing the equity analysis, Chris.
Correct.
And the question is, you're sending this to your database and people you know. This is not just something you're blindly mailing to neighborhoods. You're in relationship with people you know.
Correct. So it's an easy conversation. Now, I've done a lot more equity analysis for a lot of my past clients, but some of them called their insurance agents. They didn't have enough coverage. One of them said, oh my gosh, I can give my wife her new kitchen. Who should I call for a home equity line of credit so that we can do what we didn't think we could do?
Yeah.
So
you're just adding so much value to your people. I mean, you're really checking in with them. Now the question came in, hey, how do you convince somebody? Well, you don't, right? You don't convince somebody. It's based on their need as to whether or not they're going to sell or not in this market, right, Chris?
It is. And there's 2 things that you really need to be prepared for when you have that conversation. The question and the objection. The question is, well, where am I going to go? I'd love to sell and take advantage of this. So be prepared to say, okay, let's talk about that. Maybe you can buy without selling. Maybe we can, we've got multiple offers coming in. Maybe we can have a 60-day close and you can rent back for another 60 days while we find you your perfect home.
Well, and Chris, by the way, just for a sidebar, 24 hours from right this moment, we're going to be talking about that objection with Denny Grimes, who's a Bold Coats and a Maps Coach. So 24 hours from right now, we will literally be walking through that exact objection. Okay, so Chris, I got to make sure we got the steps. We sent the letter. You had something with it and sent the letter and said, hey, if this is something you're interested, text or call. Then you're also doing you're following your DTD2 schedule and you text them on Friday. Then you call the ones back first who responded, and then you call everybody else later. And then you're jumping on a Zoom. You're preparing it in advance and jumping on a Zoom with them and sharing. And then whatever they choose to do with that information, you're happy to support them with. Are there any steps that we didn't cover that you want people to know about?
No, that's it. It works great. And people are happy to hear from me. And it's a great service, even if they're not looking to move.
You can't argue with 14 listings in the first 9 weeks of the year. I mean, there are 10 weeks of the year. That's totally awesome. And Chris, you're a small team. You're the listing agent. You got an admin and another agent. This is not some massive operation like we're about to go to with Scott over at Sue Adler's team. That's a big operation they've got there. Chris, thank you for sharing. Stick around in case we've got some questions. Scott, let's go to you. So, and your team with Sue Adler and that team, they've been doing a great job with these seller seminars. Again, kind of like what Chris is doing, inviting people into the conversation. Tell us a little bit about what is a seller seminar and how does it work?
Yeah, so that's the most popular question we get is, all right, we love the idea. What does that actually mean? So, a seller workshop is what we call it, not a seminar. To me or to us, seminar is sort of like this, right? Everyone's out there listening and we're talking and there's no interaction. We were really purposeful about calling it a workshop. We want people to come, interact, and actually take away tangible things that they can implement into their home and into the process of getting their home ready. And really where it started was we realized that our homeowners were not quite ready to have us in their front door, and yet they needed the advice. And not only that, we kept going on these appointments where people were coming up with the same objections, right? The same questions over and over and over again. And Dan Ihara, who's been doing this for 20 years, kind of kept talking about the idea. And finally, as many of us realized, right, like somebody showed us the idea 5 years ago, and we finally catch on to it, and we're like, this is business changing for us. And yet, that's the way the world works. So finally, we took Dan's advice and we said, all right, great, why don't we implement this? And what we found is that we reverse engineered the process. We talked about, okay, what are the questions that our average homeowners are asking about selling, using that as the pitch as to why someone could come to the workshop, right? And then hosting these workshops where you get 15 to 30 people every time we do them to come and listen to us talk about getting their home ready, right? And ultimately what it is it's your listing consultation that you currently have in a PowerPoint format presented to a group of folks. And at the end, you're going to set appointments, go on those appointments, and address their individual concerns once the workshop's over.
But what's great about this, Scott, is they've already raised their hand and said, we're thinking about it. Like you've narrowed down to this group of whatever you said, 5, 15, 20, however many people show up that have said, yeah, we're at least considering it and we need to know about it. All right. So question one then is, how often do you host your seller workshop?
Yeah. So we do them twice a week, every week now. So we'll do 100 and, we'll do 104 this year. However, you certainly don't need to start out at that scale. So let's just back up. When we first started,
you guys have 23 people or whatever, so you got a lot of people.
We have plenty of people to do them. So let's back up. When we first started them, we did one a month, right? We were really purposeful about it. We did one a month, and what we would do is before the pandemic, we were hosting them at libraries. And the reason why we picked libraries was we didn't want the people who just wanted to come for the free meal or for a drink at the bar, right? We wanted people who wanted to come to a safe place, right, that was all about adult education. And so libraries were very happy to take our $50 to have their room for the evening. By the way, we were thrilled to only pay $50 for their room for the evening as well. And it became this community event, right? It changed the tone of, oh, we're going to come see the Sue Adler team pitch us on why they should sell our house. And it reframed it into, here's a workshop on how to get my home ready for sale. And so I would start really simply. I would back up. I'd say pick a date 30 to 45 days in the future. Take your current database that you have and through mail, through phone calls, text messages, and emails, I would consistently repeat the message of come to the workshop. You will find if you have probably 500 people in your database, maybe even a little bit less, I think that you can get easily 15 to 30 people in the room for the first workshop. And that will entice you to keep going and going and blow it up to what we have now. And currently what we're doing is direct mail campaigns. So we found that, for us, the thing that worked the best were direct mail campaigns. So we're sending thousands of letters a week, every week, consistently to fill up our workshops, of which we're doing 2 a week, every week.
All right. So if we hit the pause button and rewind and talk to the traditional agent, and they're out there, maybe they have an admin and yet they're the salesperson. You started with the database, just like Chris did. Chris started with the database. So the whole thing of, well, how do I get their phone numbers and email addresses? That's not an issue. You've got them. When you start in the database, you've got phone numbers, you've got email addresses. So you're not worried about that. You started there. And what you're telling me is if you got 500 people in the database, you've got enough people to do some seller workshops.
Absolutely. And not only that, think about it this way, right? It became a part of our DNA. Every time we did an open house, you're going to get a handful at least of neighbors who come in the front door, right? And like many of us, you're either here because you want to know what they did to your house or you're thinking about selling your house, right? Well, hey, instead of having to sort of squeeze your way in or get creative about how you're going to get in their front door for a listing consultation, what if we just invited them to a seller workshop, right? It's a really easy way to say, hey, this might be something that you as a neighbor who's thinking about selling your home tomorrow, a week from now, a year from now, 10 years from now, it doesn't really matter. You can come on into a workshop and get all the information you need to get started, right? People love that. They just love the education point of it. And I think, much like one of my favorite books ever is called Go Givers Sell More. And the whole concept of that book is if you give and you just give and give and give, you will always receive back more than you've ever given. And I think the Seller Workshop embodies that idea. We're giving this information. There's no strings attached. If we've had people come and list with other people, is that ultimately what we're trying to do? No, absolutely not. And yet that's the reality of giving, is sometimes people are going to choose not to work with you. And yet what we know is when people come, they leave no liking and trusting us, and we at least get an at bat to list their home. And I think, that's what we're all after these days, especially in a market like this. Listings are the king.
Yeah, they are. And again, I got to reiterate, for 90% of the people who are watching this right now, it is not about doing direct mail like Sue Adler's team, which is one of the most elite teams in Keller Williams, is doing, right? They're sending out mail because they've gone through the database. The database knows about it. By the way, you're probably still telling the database about it. And yet the way to expand it is to do direct mail and send letters and all that kind of stuff. It's massively expensive. It takes a lot of follow-up. Again, I got to reiterate, because I'm seeing the chat blow up. How do I send out letters? You don't until you talk to your database. Well, where do I get the list? You don't get a list until you've done it with your database. Scott, that's the advice, right? Start with that group.
Start with that group, and always lead with revenue, right? We talk about it over and over and over. Always lead with revenue. When you start with your database, it's free, right? You already spent, whether it be actual dollars for your database or whether it be your time to build your database, you already spent that, right? Use that to your advantage and put people in the room and get listings out of it, right? Those listings are going to then fund your next step, and then you can go blow it up to whatever scale you want it to be, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Do that first. And then, by the way, you probably use different data. When we did something like this similar on the team that I was on, we would look at certain zip codes that are moving quickly and stuff like that. So you might look at some data. Let's say we have some people that they can scale this. They're prepared to do that. They've got a good operation. What advice would you give on who to direct mail?
Yeah, so what we found was we noticed that a certain demographic of homeowner was showing up to our workshops, and those were people who had been in their homes for, say, 30 plus years, right? I'm New Jersey, we're not very transient. Well, we have a lot of people leaving, but people aren't moving around every 5 years, right? And so people are buying homes, and they're here for 20, 30, 40. We've had people on who've been in their home for 70 years, right? And so we noticed that was really the population that was saying, all right, this is cool, I want to do this. And so we figured, hey, if we're going to spend all this marketing money and thousands of letters is thousands of dollars every week in marketing, why fan it out to everybody when only this, when the majority, say 90% of the people who are attending, fit within this box? And so, whether or not you have access to tax records or Remind, there's 1,000 different list brokers out there, you can start to splice and dice your neighborhood data to identify and mimic the people who show up to your workshop. One big caveat to that, James, is I think everywhere is going to be a little different, right? Something that we do in New Jersey may or may not connect with people in Arizona, may or may not connect with people in Florida, may or may not connect with people in New York, right? Right over the state line. So you have to understand your market, and going backwards a little bit, like being the local economist of choice, you're going to understand who's moving and why they're moving. And that's going to help you tailor your workshop programming to those specific people. So again, you're talking to the widest breadth of people that you possibly can.
Got it. And then as far as the content of the workshop, what you said earlier was it's basically your listing presentation, right? And handling the traditional objections that might pop up. Is that right? What do you want people to know about the content of the workshop?
So the content is also that's probably the next biggest question we get. It is your listing consultation or presentation in a PowerPoint format, and make it graphic, right? I mean, no one wants to sit there and read words on a slide. People want to see pictures. And what I recommend, and how we started, we drafted something, we presented it. We have a big enough group that we just presented it for the group. If you don't, present it for your market center, right? Be a little vulnerable and take something and present it to your peers. They will give you typically very brutally honest feedback, but in a good way, right? And they'll show you, okay, that made sense. And I know that kind of made sense in your head, but that makes no sense here. Or why do you go here? When they'll help you reorder the program in a way in which it starts to make sense. And then you're going to start getting feedback as you do them, right? I mean, just like anything we do, we're going to start to get live feedback. And that's going to help you adjust your programming accordingly. So that way at the end, you have a presentation. And by the way, it's an ever-changing presentation. We are adjusting it. We're moving it for different markets. what we talked about pre-COVID is now different than what we talk about post-COVID versus what we were doing these April of 2020. We were still doing them, right? That was heavy on one topic and one topic only. How do you sell your home in this COVID environment while not getting sick along the way, right? And of course, we weren't doctors, but we were doing our best to try to figure out safe ways to help people still reach their goals of selling, because people still needed to sell and move.
It sounds like we shouldn't get too tied into how many people show up either, right? You got one person or 20 people sitting in there. That one person is someone who's raised their hand that says, I'm thinking about it. Last question for you, Scott, is this. I imagine follow-up after a seller workshop is massively important, right?
Yeah. So just like anything you do, the key is in the follow-up, right? The money is in the follow-up. And once you bring these people through and you get them to know, like, and trust you, right? We talked about that before. That's the key. Now the time is to really capitalize on that. And that's in providing resources. That's in giving them one-on-one advice, right? It's like we talk about, we're in a group setting and we get questions all the time. Well, what should I do with my bathroom? I'm not in your home right now, right? I don't know what your bathroom looks like. I might not even remember what address you live at, right? And my advice, like in my area, a knockdown could cost $1 million. So you could have a really ugly bathroom. You should just leave it the way it is, because you're going to get a lot of money and you're going to get out and you won't touch a thing, right? Or maybe you're in a home where it makes sense to invest $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 into redoing bathrooms and redoing floors and painting. I have to come over to see that, right? And so a lot of that follow-up is around that and around understanding what's your timeline like, right? When do you want to move? Is it a month from now, or is it really a 5-year project, and where are you going to go, and how can we help? How can we meet you where you are today, so that way we're in your life 5 years from now when you're ready to sell? And we're working on there's a big demand out there for some programming and some content around this. It's something that we're working on. I know a lot of people have reached out about it, and certainly we can continue to do so.
You'll have even more now. They're all going to want your presentation. But what I heard you say is go build one and get feedback from others. So thank you, Scott. Appreciate you so much. All right, Irene, thanks for waiting this one out. I'll tell you, you're awesome. And I appreciate you. Why I wanted to have you on is because you are so tied to your community, and you have such an idea of what's going on in the neighborhoods that you live around and the people in your database. And that's what I want to talk with you about. It seems like in order to take listings in a market like this, especially you're in Canada, where it's been a longer play as far as coming out of the pandemic and easing restrictions and things like that. It's the middle of winter there. I mean, it's just like a whole lot going on. You, though, are keyed in and tied into talking people into your farm area and your community. How important is it, Irene, to be engaged with people in your community in order to take listings in a market like this?
Well, for us, it's critical, James, because, I've been listening, and every time I turn around, I'm taking notes, just so you know, because I always learn from all the other panelists. We don't have the equity, the top choice of selling right now. The top motivation for a lot of you was equity, and we don't have that because our price points are so high. I think I saw that in the chat as well, that it does make it very difficult even to take out a ton of equity and do something else with it, because the options are very limited. So for us, it's upsizing, downsizing, and a little bit moving closer to family as well. We've certainly had that. But for us, because the price points are different, because the options are more limited, knowing the people and being in touch with the people and then just talking to more and more people is critical. And, for us in our farm, we've been at it for 12 years in the same farm. And, like you said, through 2020 and 2021, we were extremely restricted in our farm. A lot of our business was coming from door knocking and open houses, both of which were really shut down for us for a really, really long time. So it was really just the mailing with events or virtual events and our contest, trying to find some of those other people that we didn't know, at the same time as the relentless follow-up of the people who were already Mets. And, much like you with the creation of the Pivot Shift group, we really thought that with all of those things being taken away from us, our business would plummet. And before 2021, 2020 was our previously highest grossing year, and 2021 was a record for us. So it's just that connection. And if you have people that really can't move, and in early 2020, I can't even remember if I made this up or if I heard it somewhere, but I was, when talking to my sphere and the people in our farm, I would say, some people can't move and shouldn't, and some can and should. And that group of people who couldn't move and shouldn't move was really, really big.
Mhm.
So the only option was just finding more people who can and should by talking to more people.
Irene, I love it. So this is a question we hear all the time, which is, hey, I don't know a bunch of people. I don't have 1,000 people in my database or 600 people in my database. I need to go out and meet people. You chose to do that, by the way, through farming. You farmed for 12 years. What are some strategies or tips you'd give to somebody if they're going to start to get involved in the community, start farming, start communicating with people in it? What are some things they need to think about and know based on your experience?
Well, definitely who it is that's living in that farm, the predominant demographic and what their needs are. In our farm, we have a lot of professionals and a lot of seniors. And the seniors that are young and vibrant don't necessarily want to go to an old folks home. So looking to see who's there, what is it that they need. So if you are starting to think about a farm and you're in a neighborhood or a city that allows more of that contact now that we weren't able to do, really get out and talk to people. I mean, it all comes down to talking to people. You're talking to your database and you're talking to the people that you don't know. And that's the only way you're going to figure out what you need to do.
I love it. And what I remember, you were on a 12 weeks of listings with us that we did in the fourth quarter of last year. And if I recall, and you'll have to correct me, I'll have to get the right number. I always tend to embellish, but you took somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 listings and almost all of them were over $1 million or something like that. Do I have that right?
You're pretty close. I think last year we were at 32 or 35 listings by the end of the year. And, we are blessed in Toronto with a very high average price point. In 2021, our total transactions was 61 with our small team, and our volume was 73 million. So we're very, very fortunate in that respect. But
here's what I want you to get real quick is that you're door knocking to get $1 million listings. You're doing open houses and door knocking around them to get $1 million listings.
And
so,
Chris started in 1994. I have her beat by 2 years. I started in real estate in 1992, and I started by door knocking, and I'm still door knocking. And now, of course, my challenge is to pass on that knowledge and have the agents on my team get as good at door knocking as I've been able to do. But it's just, time over task, time on task over time. You just have to keep doing it. And yes, we have online lead generating platforms. Yes, we have all kinds of tech systems that help us generate leads and stay in touch with our database. But honestly, it's just getting back to basics.
All right. So then tell us the basics of door knocking. We're going to go out and pick a farm. First of all, you've picked a handful of neighborhoods. You don't just door knock anything in Toronto. So you've got some specific neighborhoods. Give us the ins and outs on if I'm going to go door knock, because it seems like it'd be a really great way to get in front of people, offer an equity analysis, connect with them, invite them to your seller workshop. Like there's so many things that we've already heard that you could just go direct to people by knocking on their door.
Sure. I started door knocking in 1992 in January, and it was
in Toronto. January in Toronto.
20.
That's the other thing I think about. Irene's door knocking $1 million homes in January in Toronto. then folks, you can door knock $300,000 homes in Phoenix in January. It can be done.
So, James, right now, because of all of the resources that we've had through Keller Williams, there's so many different things you can go door knocking with. In 1992, when I started, I was in my early 20s. I had no experience. I had no sphere. I had nothing. I just had sheer willpower. And when we started this farm in, I think it was 2011, we didn't have all these resources. So I just went to the door. Hi, we're new realtors in the neighborhood. We want to meet more people. Do you know anybody who might be selling? Like literally, that was it. And because of that, even though farming typically has a very, very long period from the time that you start to see results, we had our first listing in 3 months because one of the neighbors leaned over and said, over there, I think they have to sell. Right. And that's how it started. And then you get one listing and you promote it and you get more listings. And like, honestly, there's no secret. There's no magic bullet. You just have to get out there and get in front of people and talk to them.
So when you're going to knock on a door, Irene, and check in with people, what is your MOFR, right? That's been what we talked about today. A MOFR, again, it's page 61 of the Shift book, is make offer for immediate response. We've heard Chris's, we've heard Scott's. What's yours?
Well, for door knocking in the farm right now, because we've been so visible for so long, I have a greater affinity with people, and they already know me and they know the team. So we do have some more points of conversation. But then there's 4,000 people in our farm, and I don't know everybody. We don't know everybody. So it really depends on what I see at the door. I'm a good reader of people. Do they want to chat? Do they want to engage? Is there an opportunity to find out how long they've been there? Where would they go if they could? How soon will that be? So it's a lot of, it's knowing those scripts and having everything at the back of your head so that it comes out naturally, depending on who it is that's in front of you and what it is that they're telling you they want or don't want.
Irene, when the pandemic hit, and really, again, as we said, Canada's really just started to kind of reopen and relax some restrictions. You were in a space that it just door knocking wasn't going to work, so you pivoted, if you will, to events and doing digital events and things like that. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, it's interesting, I was listening to Scott talk about the seller workshops. In the beginning of 2020, we had a whole year of events planned out completely. And one of them was going to be a downsizing workshop. We had a big church booked, everything was planned. We had our speakers. And then of course, when the pandemic hit, we had to stop that. And then we kept waiting every month to see, like, are we going to keep doing them? Or are we going to keep doing them? So in 2021, we couldn't do anything. We did contests. We took the Tony Baroni Reverse Bold 100 and we just started doing virtual contests. And those were popular. And now that we are back to opening up, we do have our calendar of events planned. Actually, I was just speaking to my financial advisor earlier today. We're doing a wealth planning in volatile times workshop that will be more focused on finances and accounting, with sort of, us in the background as realtors. What was events? Yeah.
So you have your wealth building event, and then something else.
We're getting really good at the contests. So we've now given away, we gave away a weekend away in Niagara, which is outside of, it's sort of Southern Ontario. We've given away a giant red egg. They're red in Canada. We've given away a snowblower, and our big contest coming up for the end of this month is a big spring clean sweep. So it's interior cleaning, window cleaning, and landscaping package. So we're in the absence of being able to get in front of people, and I mean, now we're going to be able to do that a little bit more and do micro events. I do micro events in the farm as well. We do mani-pedi ladies nights. We're hoping to do something for the gents, like we're thinking scotch and cigars, something like that, where it's smaller, 15, 20 people instead of bigger scale. So we always have to look, you talk about the market of the moment. We have to figure out, what is the temperature of all of our clients? Are they going to be open for an in-person event? Do we have to look at hybrid events? Like, we're sort of, it feels like we're pivoting every week.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, and it's so Canadian. You're giving out red, green eggs, snow blowers, doing spring cleaning. And I remember in the fall, you were giving out all of your leaf bags that had your logo on it and all that kind of stuff for people to use.
Yeah. So. And you know what? We've started that as a team event in the fall. We had we got 6 of the team members giving out yard bags. Up until then, it was always just me. So now we're doing twice a year. We're going to do twice a year. We have 2 big red wagons. We just go up one street and down the other, and we give everybody leaf bags. That's not exactly door knocking, because we're not going to the door to talk to people. Right. It really gives us an opportunity to engage with people who are on the street.
I love it. Be engaged in the community and know what's going on. Thank you, Irene. This is great. Scott, great job. Chris, great job. All great ideas. I thank you for sharing. The idea again is figure out what is the way you A, get in front of your people, and then B, what is the mofer? What is it that's going to inspire them to respond? Chris gave it to you through the equity analysis, which Chris, quite frankly, it's a CMA, right? You can do a CMA in your MLS, or you can jump in and do a RPR is a very common thing people like to do from National Association of Realtors. You're doing that. Scott, you guys are offering your seller workshop where people can come and learn about the process. And Irene, you're staying engaged with your community. All of those things matter in a market like this, and it keeps you out in front, right? It keeps you out in front. So if the market starts to slow down, you've got a pipeline of people. Chris, Scott, Irene, thank you for taking time out to join us today. We honor you and appreciate you. All the best.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right. You guys got great ideas. And again, it goes back to page 61. Direct offers seek to generate immediate responses to buy and sell, and indirect offers seek to generate immediate responses for something from you other than to buy or sell. What we're looking for right now in this market is people who are ready to transact right now. And our job is to reach out and find those people. That's what we're doing. Okay. So we have spent the entire first hour and 15 minutes talking about an economic shift and then what you got to do to get in front of your people. But the truth is, that's not the only shift we experience right now. Now, when Gary and Jay wrote the book, it was all about an economic shift and how you stay in front. But in 2022, we experience a value shift as well, where you've got different companies starting up out of the blue, and they're going to do all sorts of different things to add value to the consumer. And then you start to hear the real estate agent is going to be less valuable than before, which is absolutely not true. Actually, more people are using a real estate agent now more than ever before. And so we've got to be able to know what our value is while understanding the value that our competitors offer, because our competitors offer value. They're not all bad. It's just we might offer it too and don't explain it really well. So when I was thinking, how do we talk about a value shift? Who would be the person? And it took me about a half a second to realize Jason Abrams is the guy. He's the head of industry for KWRI. Jason, thanks for jumping on with us during our shift workshop. We're excited to have you.
Oh, it is an honor to be here, and thank you everybody for being here. Whenever you're working on the business, you should be honored, and taking time out to learn is the key.
Oh, well, I'll tell you, this has been a hit. We broke Connect for a few minutes today. So people are watching it like crazy, which is great. Truth is, like I said, we just spent the first hour and 15 minutes. Jim Talbot was on going through numbers with us. We interviewed some agents about what they're doing to stay active right now. But that's not the only thing going on. Our industry is going through kind of a revolution of its own, and that's what you study every day. What should agents know about the industry as a whole from you?
Number one, I think the things that we know are good and true, which is that relationships are where the real wealth is, and that people want a more human experience more often is winning the day. As a matter of fact, we're seeing more folks send referrals to real estate agents than at any time before over the last decade. We're back now up to 48%, and that was from a low of 41%. This is to say that in the battle between humanity and swiping right to buy and sell a house, James, we're winning.
Well, that's good. I mean, and the data from NAR tells us that I remember a couple of years ago, like literally more people than ever used a real estate agent to buy or sell property. So that the idea that we're going to move the whole thing online is doesn't seem to be coming to fruition. And yet we're doing stuff online.
Yeah, 100%. The fascinating thing we talked about at a family reunion was that the millennials are doing business more through repeat and referral than their predecessors. Meaning, like everyone keeps saying the next generation will be the one that does everything online. And then you look up and say, not according to any data, but there's an argument to be made that the consumer right now, in all of the ways that they transact business, is falling into relationships with companies that provide certain buckets of value. And you can see these buckets of value across all of the different type of businesses that you're either starting to use or you're going to be using more of. And it's a really simple equation that it came out actually of a Netflix sort of idea, which was there's only three things that every consumer wants for any online business. And we talked about them at the beginning of 2020. We got to hit on them again. It's the first idea here is the word unique. And I'm going to just put a U. Unique means unique to you as the consumer. So if it's general information, it's important, but not very much interesting. Gary says it's probably like a bathing suit. What it reveals is interesting. What it hides is vital.
Oh my God.
And this is why you need to have unique information, because James, if I told you that the average weather in the United States today was 71 degrees, you'd still have no idea how to dress wherever you are.
That's right.
So when you log into Netflix and it tells you exactly what it thinks you want to watch, that's unique. When you log into Amazon and it tells you what it thinks you want to buy, that's unique. When you go to that company that rhymes with Billo and type in your address and you get a value, it's unique to your house. You didn't type in your address and get the value of your friend's house or the average in the neighborhood. You got your house. That's unique.
Yeah.
So now
it's funny that you say that real quick. I got to tell you, because you bring up Amazon. I logged into Amazon today and they have a little thing. It says shop your everyday essentials. All right. And so for my everyday essentials, it's a case of water, hand sanitizer, face masks, and sweet tarts. I don't know how they've come up with that list, but that I can promise you it's unique to me. Nobody else is logging on to Amazon. And those are by the way, they call them my everyday essentials. So apparently it's an everyday essential to have a sweet tart.
Your everyday essential is I'm traveling on an airplane book.
Yeah.
I'm going to have all those things, but that's exactly right. And so that becomes valuable information. So we have this idea of unique. And so right now, if you're playing along at home, I want you to get out your notepad and a pen, and I want you to write down all of the unique touches that you're having with your data bank on an annual basis. And here's what I'm afraid of. Some of you are saying, I don't have any. Like I send a postcard, but it's the same to everybody. And I send an email and it's the same to everybody. We got to have unique. Once we have unique and that moves across the entire business, it breaks into 3 categories.
Okay, real quick. Sorry, pardon me. This is what I've been doing all day because I got to interrupt just to make sure people get it. When you're saying unique, you're not saying come up with a unique marketing piece. You're saying what's unique to that person in your database. We got to put our people in buckets. It's the bullseye from MREA. You got your allied resources, your top 50 or top 100, and it grows from there. And we're going to communicate with each of those groups differently, right? That's what you're saying.
It's exactly right. And here's a great way to remember it. If I sent all of you a birthday card today, it would be the worst mistake of my life. But for one of you, it would be an amazingly unique touch.
Yep, right.
And that's the idea. So
is that the easiest unique touch is just to send the birthday card and call them on their birthday? That's a layup.
It's probably the easiest. The question is, does that actually add any value to the consumer?
Fair.
And so I get a birthday card every year from my insurance guy. His name is Ron. They're all named Ron for some reason. But Ron sends me a birthday card. And because that's the only thing he does for me, it doesn't really feel really special or unique. Like it kind of feels like he doesn't know me at all and he's sending me a birthday card out of obligation. I don't need that in my life. And that's kind of what these buckets are about to symbolize. So we know it has to be unique. The first thing is it's got to be unique information. Unique information in, let's see if I can get that to focus for you. Unique information. So what's a unique piece of information for anyone that you know that lives in a house? The first one, and I leave you a pause because everybody learns in the pauses. The first one you would say is the value of that house. Love that. That's right. What else would be a unique piece of information?
Which, by the way, is why we spent 20 minutes on an equity analysis today, because that's unique to them. All right, keep going.
If all you did was that, if all you did was contact every single person in your data bank in a TCPA friendly compliant way and told them what their house was worth, you'd be so far ahead of the game, it wouldn't even be funny.
Well, Chris, who is on with us, has done 14 listings this quarter. So the first 10 weeks of the year through an equity analysis.
By the way, the greatest dialogue ever around the equity analysis, I think, is the old baseline. And here's the phone call. James, play along with me.
Sure.
James, I'm contacting you in a TCPA friendly compliant way. And so the phone rings. Hey, James,
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. Jason, what's up?
It dawned on me that right now, because the real estate market is booming, everybody thinks they know the value of their house. And everybody thinks it's more than it might be. But then I asked myself, how do they actually get that information? And then it dawned on me, that's my job. And so here's what I'd like to do, if you're okay with it, James. Today, I'd like to establish a baseline value of your home, meaning that on March 9th of 2022, we're going to say your home is worth blank. Then every time you and I speak, probably quarterly between now and the history of ever, what I'm going to say is, hey, James, based on the value that we set, which was X back in March 9th of 2022, your home has either went up or down in value. That way, whenever you make a decision, it'll be based on a baseline that you and I set today. Would that be okay?
I love that. Let's do that.
Perfect. Now, end the conversation there. Here's why it matters to you all. Because now every quarter, you have a really compelling reason by which to call James. This is why doctors give you a checkup. It's so that they know how screwed up you are when you finally come in really sick. If you don't do the baseline and someone walks in, you might look up and say, you might be fine. You might be dying. The truth is, I don't know. And that is the worst doctor's appointment ever.
Yep.
So unique information. And if you really wanted an order of events, it would be their home, followed by their neighborhood, followed by their city, followed by their county, followed by their state, followed by the good old US of A or Canada or any of the other 52 countries that you are in. And again, you could literally stop right here with value and you'd be a heck of a lot further along in the game.
Yep.
Okay, James, that's information.
Yep.
Now the next one here, try to get my camera to refocus for you. Cool. The next one here is access. How do you spell access, James?
Oh, I haven't the slightest idea.
We're just going to
A.
put a big A and then we're going to do that for you.
That's it.
God forbid I should spell assess. Okay, so access is really important. And what access means is that because I'm in James's data bank, I get access to certain things that I wouldn't get if I wasn't. So if you were in transaction with somebody who's looking to buy a house, the unique access you'd be providing is turning the key that you got out of the lockbox. Because of their association with you, they get into this house. If you're on Netflix, you get access to the Tiger King. You wouldn't if you were on Hulu, by the way. If you're on Hulu, you get access to Scoring the Deal, starring Jason Abrams, which was a hit. And that's unique access, by the way. Anyone that's on Hulu should be watching that show regularly. With other points of access, it might be a digital client event. Maybe you're going to go to Google and you're going to Google Speakers Bureau digital offering. And you're going to go grab some sort of celebrity who's going to do a Zoom call just for your people. I just went to one of these, James. Someone paid Sir Mix-a-Lot to come do a 3-song version. One of them was Baby Got Back in a cappella.
That's amazing.
Oh my gosh. It blew my mind. Like it was so good. And it was only 15 minutes. And I don't think that could cost a ton of money, but I'll tell you what, I got an invite for it.
Yeah.
I told 10 people about it because I thought it was hysterical. And then I sent them selfies of me watching Sir Mix-a-Lot from my computer because that's just awesome. Now,
that's great.
Some of you are thinking that's not for my data bank. Cool. Hire someone else. I'm just giving you an example.
I heard the one where Shaq made pizza. They had Shaq on the Zoom making pizza.
Wendy Harrelson just had a birthday and she got a text message from Shaq. It's a video where he was literally singing to her. I don't know how they do it. That's unique access. The client events are unique access. And it may even be more than that. You may have some amazingly unique piece of your business that you offer them. And we're watching it change. So I'm going to put client event down. I think that's the easiest one to start on unique access. You can't go wrong with any of them. So if you're playing along at home, make a list right now. What is the unique access that your people are getting? Cool. The last one, service. We got to have unique service. Now, what's an example of a unique service? It's a service that they get because they're in business with you that they don't get anywhere else. What's the most common unique service for a realtor? And the realtor says, well, it's me. The unique service is that I answer the phone no matter what I'm doing 24/7. I got sand in my laptop because I take it on vacation. I'm the unique service. Yes, by the way, in transaction, you're probably the unique service. The lockbox key is probably the unique access, and the unique information is probably the CMA on the home they're buying. You're doing this in transaction. You're just not doing it in between transaction. So what's the number one unique service that you could be giving to people in between transactions? I'll give you a couple examples. We have an agent who just went out there. It's springtime now in the Midwest. At least it's starting. They booked a window washer, James. They said, how much? I want to book you for 2 solid weeks. How many houses can you do a day? The window washer said 8 a day. Said, perfect. I want you. That means we're going to have 80 houses. This person's going through their SOI. And here's the phone call, James. You ready?
Yep.
Hey, James, Jason Abrams calling. I'm your realtor. How are you?
I'm good, Jason. Good to hear from you.
Good to hear from you too, sir. You know, I had an epiphany. I owe you an apology.
Okay.
I realized that it's not just my job to sell you a beautiful home. It's my job to help you live beautifully within it.
Yeah.
And I realized that. And here's what I did. I ran out and I found a window washer who I hired. When was the last time you had the exteriors of your windows washed?
5 years ago.
By the way, it's probably time. Do you mind if I send someone over to wash the exterior of your windows for free?
How quickly?
Oh, I'm going to get them over.
I'm ready right now.
Yeah, we're gonna get them over in the next 2 weeks. There's no charge for it, and I'm sorry I didn't do this sooner. And I hope everything with you is great.
Dude, you're the best. Thank you so much for thinking of us.
Perfect. Great conversation. Friends, No one is saying no to that in the history of ever.
Right.
And that's one of those unique services. And people are getting really creative with these. Some folks have hired full-time handy people and they're sending them over to do work in people's houses. And if you're sitting there and you're like, well, great, I can't afford any of that. Breathe for a second.
Yep.
Just stop for a second and then realize that a unique service could simply be calling somebody and just asking them how they are. You know how many lonely people there are, folks, who just would love to get a phone call, a care call from somebody who cares? It's an infinite number. There's an agent in Colorado, and all this person did, and by the way, when I say all, it's only because it's genius. All this person did was go out and she bought 100 flowers. And she delivered 1 flower to each of the people in her SOI. And I got to tell you, that changed her entire business. She got 3 referrals from doing the 100 flower delivery. And at the average sales price in Colorado, she's going to make herself $45,000 because she spent the time to do it.
I think what you're saying, Jason, it's about showing your database that you care about them. And that's something, by the way, that, as you said, the swipe right to buy a house cannot do. The website cannot tell you it cares about you, but you as a professional can. And whether you have the budget to go wash 80 get 80 windows washed in a house, or it's about passing out flyers, or gosh darn it, start with the phone call on the birthday, you got to do something to stand out.
You got to do something to stand out. You got to do something that delivers unique access or unique information or unique services. And that's where the whole industry is going. And it's not, by the way, it's not going to change. This is going to be the march for all the companies that you like and all the companies that are winning. Think of the Domino's pizza tracker and just realize the only reason it matters to you is because it's about your pizza. And you don't log in and see when James's pizza is getting delivered. And in that moment, you realize, oh my gosh, that's unique information. And I only could get that if I would have ordered that pizza, which is unique access. And in less than 30 minutes, someone's going to drop a pizza that has a surface temperature of 162 degrees, which is the optimal for cheese, at my door. And that's unique service. And oh my gosh, I wish I owned a Domino's.
How does an agent then figure all this, like come up with the plan or figure out how we're going to stay in touch? So many of our people, Jason, you know it, you get the calls, I get the calls. They're just trying to find the next deal and keep their head above water because they've got a buyer who's written 17 offers and hadn't gotten one yet. And then their one listing they took has 32 offers on it. And they're trying to figure that out. I don't have time to be unique. What's the answer?
Well, if you just certainly don't have time to be unique, then the first, you should do exactly what Gary Keller does, which is Gary Keller has a list that he keeps next to his computer. And that list is literally his sphere of influence. And every day, at some point during the day, I watch him lean over and put a check mark. And those are the care calls. James, I know you've been on the receiving end of some of these. Mm-hmm. And those are the care emails. And he's not doing it for something. He's doing it because that's his mission. Yeah. And that's the most unique thing you're going to get. And that doesn't take any extra time, because the truth is, if you haven't put any time in your life to talk to the people that are important to you, you're not living a life worth living anyway. And that's the bare minimum that all of us can be doing. I want to, James, do I have one more minute? I don't know.
Dude, we got like another 15, so keep rocking.
Listen, I want to listen to this. I want to read you guys something. It's from this book called The Alchemist. If you haven't read it, it's worth a read. And it's this little boy who's talking to this wise old man. And the little boy says, "What's the world's greatest lie?" So, by the way, great question. And the old man says, as if not missing a beat, he says, "It's this, that at a certain point in our lives, we lose control of what's happening to us, and our lives become controlled by fate. That's the world's greatest lie." And when you think about that, what you realize is that the thing that makes us uniquely human is our ability to choose. We wake up every day with our ability to choose every part of our day. Now, the ability to choose can't be taken away from you. It can only be forgotten. And the amazing thing is how easy it is in the human condition to forget that you have this ability to choose and to feel like the choices have either already been made or somehow you get less choices on a daily basis. The truth is, it's the complete opposite of both of those things. And so we can wake up and choose to make the same amount of money. We can wake up and choose to have the same resistance in our lives. And this is an interesting word, resistance, James, because you wake up every day and you might not be able to put your finger on it. But have you ever swam up current? Have you ever tried to walk in a stiff breeze and you're like, gosh, I can't see it, but I sure feel it? That's why resistance becomes the most dangerous thing on the universe in keeping you from getting the things that you want, because it shows up as procrastination. It shows up as saying it's too complicated. It shows up as saying this would work for others, but it won't work for me, as opposed to if not me, then why not? And so I'm going to give you the answer for this. The answer to get past resistance is the easiest process. Number one, you have to acknowledge that we're all feeling it. And by the way, I don't care if you're a billionaire. I don't care if you are starting out. I don't care if you're a business owner. I don't care if you're an employee. We are all feeling personal resistance in some place in our life.
Right.
And the more that you're feeling, by the way, and the more scared you are, use that as a compass to know that whatever you're tackling is worth tackling.
Well, Dave Jenks said that, by the way. Dave Jenks would tell you, use fear as your compass, right, to keep going forward. You're exactly right.
And so if you're terrified, or if you're stuck, or if you just can't get out of the bed, just know whatever that thing is that you're stuck from doing, you're on the right track. Celebrate the fact that you feel this resistance. Then number two, we have to ultimately decide, and we have to make a choice. I feel the resistance, it sucks, and this is the thing that I want. Once we do that, the most misstep in solving this can take place, which is we have to build triggers around remembering that we've made that choice. You ever join a gym in January?
It's packed.
I only asked, not you, James, you and I have these amazing chiseled physiques, but
Yes.
a lot of people join a gym in January and then that's it. Like by March, they're out. Well, you made the choice, but the resistance won. This idea of setting triggers is a great book called Triggers. It's really novel. But this idea is that what can I put around me such that I get triggered to take the actions that I've decided to take? So for some of us, it'll be a little bracelet. For others of us, maybe it'll be something on your desk. I'll show you two of mine, if I can get real personal here. Those photos right there, those are all the people at KWRI that I get to interact with. I'm lucky enough on a daily basis. I have their photos right in front of me so that I don't ever forget that they're there, and that triggers me to call them. Here, I'll show you the next one that I have. The next one that I have is a giant trigger for me in a good way. Can you guys see that?
Oh, the picture of Mark that you stole from Family Reunion.
That's the entire back of my door, and it's autographed. It says, Jaden, keep up the good work, because he constantly calls me Jaden. It's really wonderful for me emotionally. But here's what I know. I know that if I get triggered to help Mark King win, I'm going to win, and our whole company is going to win, because that's the president of Keller Williams, which is awesome.
You know what, Jason? It seems like that getting in the right routine. So, because what we're talking about is value. Well, people only know about the value you offer if you're sharing it to them, and you gave us the model of that. So now you have to get into a routine of sharing. You have to get into a routine of talking to people. So your routine matters. That's one of your triggers. I talked to Donna Gilbert about this. Donna Gilbert is an agent in Connecticut, Jason, and Donna had. She has like 18 or almost 20 years of experience, but she would tell you, Jason, she doesn't have 20 years of experience. She has 1 year of experience 20 times, because every year was a repeat of the previous year. And I asked her to tell me though what's happened in the pandemic as she's adjusted her routine. Because what she does every morning is what a lot of people do. She gets up and she's spending time with her husband. She's getting her exercise in. She's getting her breakfast. She's a frequent participant on the Pivot Shift Ahead calls that we do. Then she's in a script practice call, and then she's doing her lead gen on Zoom where other people are there watching. And here's what happened. And this is what you're getting after. In 2019, she did 7 units. Now her average sale price is like $450. So she has a good business at 7 units. But in 2020, she did 14. And in 2021, she did 22 units. And that was the first time she'd ever capped, and she capped twice in the year. And she said, here's what happened. I got into a routine of being able, because that's what you're saying. You got to get into a routine of sharing your value. And here's what she said. The work is hard, but the day-to-day struggle is less. You're saying that when you've got the triggers around you to help you, look, we know you talked about resistance. That's Donna Gilbert saying the work is hard.
Yes.
But you know what? If you're walking into the wind every day because you live in Chicago and the wind's always blowing in off the lake and that's how you get where you're going, eventually you get used to it and it becomes easier. She says the work is hard, the day-to-day struggle is less. Thoughts?
Everything you're saying is 100% right. And here's the thing, like if you're sitting there and you're enjoying any of this, then you're forced to realize that you could contact any single person in your data bank and give them the slightest taste of any of it, and then they would enjoy it also. And if you're feeling resistance from doing that, that's what we have to solve. The last key to this triggers thing, by the way, is we got to trade out the triggers. Every 90 days, I trade out the triggers. Because if I don't, they don't become triggers anymore. They just become pictures on my desk or a bracelet that I wear. And you do realize that you're watching in real time. You're watching Peloton and the hydro rower and the tonal. You're watching these things literally change the way that home fitness does. You realize it's not that they're anything other than the effort of getting from wherever you are to simply sitting on the seat. Once you're there, it takes care of the rest. Friends, isn't that the same with residential real estate? Meaning the effort that you take to simply get them, allow them to list with you or allow them to show you houses. Once that part is in, the rest of this is easy. We're just professional shoppers. Like, come on, let's not pretend it's something more complicated than that. You just have to get them on the seat.
Yep. Well, we got to be in relationship and in a flow, and you gave us the model for it. Being unique in both the information, the access, and I've forgotten, I don't have my note.
Service.
What was the third one? Service. Thank you. And service. And by the way, tomorrow, Jenny Wallach is going to be on to talk about service. And she's great at that, right? She's elite level when it comes to customer service. So she's going to share her thoughts on that tomorrow. Jason, would it help if you say you change out your triggers every 90 days? Do you have my cardboard cutout from Family Reunion? Is that
no? This is the one I'm keeping on my desk for you right now, James. So
a punching club. You're too much, dude.
I got it right here. But here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to let you go, but because I want to leave you with this. It's going to blow everyone's mind. Y'all ready?
Yep.
Ask yourself right now, KWU, which is, it's not just arguably, it's like the debate ended actually 9 years ago. We just allow people to keep talking about it. It's literally the greatest source of education that our industry has ever seen. Now I want you to ask yourself, unique information, unique access, and unique service. Was I describing Netflix, or did I literally just tell you why KWU is as magical as it is?
You're awesome.
And when you realize I did, that's the moment.
You're the best, dude. Thanks for celebrating our team. Thanks for being on to share and adding so much value, Jason. We appreciate you. All the best, man. Thank you so much.
See you guys.
You got it. Good stuff. All right. So Jason told it to you. You got to provide unique information, unique access, and unique service. And it doesn't have to be washing windows. It's just you got to be in a flow with your database and checking in with them. You know, as he was talking about this, the thing that came to mind to me is a lot of time. By the way, put your ahas in the chat because Jason just knocked it out of the park. And I'll share some ahas in a second. I know Grace will send them to me, and I'm watching the Zoom and all that kind of stuff. So make sure you share your ahas. Here's the thing is that we have a responsibility to stay in front of our people, because if not, someone else will give them a unique experience and they'll get in relationship with them. I think the easiest thing to do is to just call them and check in on them. And if you look at what we heard from Chris earlier on the equity analysis, what we heard from Scott earlier on the seller workshop, and what we heard from Irene earlier about doing contests, staying in touch, knocking on doors, those all allow you to be unique. But one thing you can do by being unique is do something most real estate agents aren't doing, and that's call and check in on people and see how they're doing. You know, the care call is the #1 strategy right now to stay in front of people. And there's a model to the care call. It's the 3 C's. The 3 C's of the care call are care, compassion, and common sense. You call and check in. Just calling and check in shows that you care. Then you have compassion about whatever their situation is. Just ask, how are you doing? What's going on in your world? And they share with you whatever's going on, and you have compassion toward that. And then common sense tells you whether or not you're going to bring up real estate. They'll probably bring it up themselves. And that's it. Quite frankly, the only lead gen call you have to make at any time is a care call. And if you do that, you'll have more business than you could ever imagine. But here's the deal. If you don't do it, then they don't know you're there. do me a favor, and it'll take a second because there's a little bit of a delay, but do me a favor. In the chat, I want you to type in, what is the opposite of love? Okay, so when I say love, I want to know, what do you think is the opposite of love? And I want you to type it in the chat right now. What word would be, in your mind, the opposite of love? Type them in the chat and tell me, let's see what we get, because I think we're going to get some interesting responses to this one. So we're putting whatever the opposite of love is in the chat, and I'm just waiting for it to roll in. Here we go. Okay, hate is a big one. A lot of people say hate, but here's the thing. If you look at love, does love carry a lot of energy? There's a lot of passion behind love. And does hate carry the same kind of energy, right? And that's a high energy word too. The opposite of love is apathy or indifference. And I see some of you got that now, that the opposite of love can be apathy or indifference. Well, let me ask you this. If you say you love your database, but you never call them, you're indifferent. You have apathy toward them. They never hear from you. I don't even care enough about you to communicate with you. You have a responsibility to reach out to your people. You absolutely do. And so that's where we're going to go next. And here's what I'll do. George, I'm going to share my screen, and it's going to get really fancy here. So just bear with me. And I'm going to share the screen. And there we go. All right, hold on. So George, let me know if we're good. And I got to get up to the screen that I want. So give me just a second. All right, George, we're ready. So we can show everybody what's on the screen right now. Because what I want to do is this has been about bringing shift into 2022. The book came out in 2008. The workshop that we're kind of using as the model today came out in 2019, and yet so much has changed. And so we kind of broke it down this way. Overview of what's going on in the marketplace from Jim. Then, where are our top motivations coming from right now? Because if you look at an economic shift, we need to know our motivations. We interviewed agents who are maximizing those motivations. Then next, we went and talked about, well, in addition to an economic shift, we have a shift in value right now with different consumers or competitors coming in after oh, I'm on the wrong view. They want a different view. Hold on. Okay. Stand by. This is so fancy. I'm getting notes right now as we speak. So just everybody relax. All right, here we go. This is very exciting. I'm going to go here and here. George, is this better? Is that better? All right, perfect. Much better. Okay, so here's the thing. The idea is to bring shift into right now. The book came out in 09 and 08, and there are 12 tactics. We have covered a couple of them already. We're going to cover 4 more tomorrow. But I think it's important that we do an overview of all 12 of those tactics. So that's what I'm going to go through right now. And all I'm going to do is just read to you some highlights that I have from those tactics from the Shift book. All right, so 12 tactics. The first tactic is all about mindset, and it is get real and get right. And what Gary and Jay and Dave say in that particular tactic is you cannot control the market. You can only control your outlook and your response to the market. Now, what I want to do is jump into the book, and I'll always give you a page number, and it's okay if you don't have a copy of the book with you. Just jot down page numbers. But I want to give you an overview of some of these. And here's the thing. He says, when a market shifts, this is page 23. When a market shifts, there's only one thing you can do, and that is shift with it. And Gary says there's 2 shifts you've got to make, a mental shift and an action shift. Now, if you rewind and go back in your mind to March 9th of 2020, man, COVID was really starting to become a thing. Now, you didn't have the NBA was still playing. They were still doing spring training, and Tom Hanks didn't have COVID. Remember, nobody took it seriously until Tom Hanks got COVID, which was March 12th. March 11th, I think, or 12th is when Tom Hanks got COVID. So that's when people started taking it seriously. But 2 years ago, right now, we knew it was going, and there are a lot of questions, and yet we had to make a mental shift once everything started to shut down, which would have been about the 14th, 15th, and 16th of March. Things started to shut down, and all of a sudden we had to make a mental shift. After you make the mental shift, you have to make an action one. Let me read to you what Gary says and Jay say on page 23. He says, I believe your life will either be about your problems or your opportunities. You'll either be running away from something or running towards something. It's your call. But to survive a shift, you must first make the mental shift to run toward what you want most and avoid the temptation of running away from what you most fear. All right, let's talk about it, because we've got to make a mental shift even in this market. Jim told you the average in the US right now is 1.3 months worth of inventory. In your market, it might be less. It could be significantly less than that. And so then the mental dialogue that you might have is, there's no listings, there's no inventory, where am I going to find all this business? This is a mental, but see, somebody took it. Somebody has inventory, but yet mentally we run out and say, there's no inventory. I can't find any listings. This is ridiculous. But Gary says we got to make a mindset shift first. And here's what he says on page 24. Remember that success is never about the chosen few, but about the few who choose. You cannot have a shift in your business until you first have a shift in your thinking. And once you have that shift in your thinking, you can be transformed to a shift in your business. He says you cannot control the market, but you can control your outlook and your response to it. And know that while not everyone will succeed in a shift, anyone can, and you must be an anyone can. Now, keep going. I want you to write down these 3 words for me. Write down these 3 words. Clarity. Clarity is the first word. Write down the 3 words. Clarity, priority, focused action. Did y'all write those down? Clarity, priority, focused action. Now, real quick, sidebar. All of you on the Facebook going, I need the manual. You don't. I'm reading from the actual book, which you don't need because I'm reading it to you. You don't need any manual. Just roll with me. Take notes, listen, you'll be fine. Growth comes from clarity, priority, and focused action. Clarity around your goal, clarity around the activities it's going to take, knowing what activities to do in what order, that's priority, and then taking focused action daily toward those goals. Now, Gary goes on, he's saying, hey, we got to get real, that's mindset, but then we got to get right, and that's into activities. And so he says this, and I love this. He says, page 26 of Shift. Once you've gotten real, you got to get right. And he goes on, for all the necessity of knowing what to do, taking the right action is just as necessary. See, once you know, it's not about more knowing, it's about doing. All right, let's talk about that. You've all been on here. I hear Grace is telling me there are thousands of you watching this between Connect Live and Pivot Shift Ahead, and then there'll be even more of you that watch the recording. Well, now you've totally been exposed because we've given you strategies to help you find listings today. So now you know what to do. So it's not about more knowing, it's about doing. I live 90 minutes from Magic Kingdom, and we're big Disney people. We're getting on the Disney Dream for spring break on Monday. We're going to be sailing away, and it's going to be amazing. And one of my favorite quotes is from Walt Disney. And he says this, the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. And that's what it's time for all of us to do who are watching this today. It's time to quit talking and begin doing. Now, some of you are doing, but the question is, what is it that you are doing that you shouldn't be doing? And what aren't you doing that you should? You all know the answer to that question. You do. And we know it, that our lead gen is number 1. In fact, he says on page 27, the 2 actions we must take personal ownership of are lead generation and lead conversion. Period, the end. Those are the things. The last thing about mindset I want to give you is this. Let me go find it. I turned my pages too quick. Last thing about mindset I want to give you is page 28. Here's what Gary J. and Dave say on page 28 of Shift. As business analysts had often pointed out, the seeds of failure are usually sown during times of success. The most humbling lesson of the shift is this: we succeed in good times not only because of what we do right, but also in spite of what we do wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in the instant sales market. That's what Gary called it at Family Reunion, instant sales. That's a time of success. You put a home on the market, it sells, you get cash money records in 30 days, and then you rinse and repeat and do it again. But the problem, Gary says, is we succeed in good times not only because of what we do right, but also in spite of what we do wrong. Our goal today is to help make sure that you do fewer things wrong and more things right. So that's tactic number 1, which is getting real, getting right. All right, George, back to the slides. We're going to go to tactic Number two, which is all about remargining your business. It's about expense management. And what Gary, Jay, and Dave say about this is page 29. Change isn't easy, and significant change is downright difficult. Yet long-term success requires it. My experience has taught me that people most responsive to change are the ones most likely to survive and thrive. And this is where we've got to remargin our business. The challenge that happens in a market like this, when you're making crazy money, and some of you watching this are making absolutely crazy money right now, the challenge that you have is that when you make crazy money, you spend crazy money. And then when the market changes, you aren't ready. Some of you are going to have taxes due. Well, all of you are going to have taxes due in like 6 weeks. Are you prepared to pay them? So I want to give you a strategy to help you because as it says on the screen, the number one determinant of thriving is lead generation, but the number one determinant of surviving is expense management. You got to get your expenses under control. Here's the strategy. And we taught this to you 2 years ago at the beginning of the pandemic. It's really simple. You print out a year's worth, and if that's too much, do 3 months worth of credit card statements and bank statements. Just print them out. Get them on paper right in front of you. And then you're going to go line by line by line. And if you're in a relationship, get your partner with you. So Terry and I, we'd sat down, we did this together. Terry's my wife, 12 years. We sit down, we do it together. And we go line by line by line by line. And here's what you do. You put a letter A next to anything that's mandatory. There aren't many things that are mandatory. Your mortgage is probably mandatory. If you got a car payment, you got to pay that. Your kid's school, whatever your electric bill, you put an A next to everything that's mandatory. You got to pay. B is the stuff that you kind of like to keep it, but you need to make sure it's earning its keep. So in business, for example, maybe you're buying a bunch of leads online, but you need to go and ask, am I getting a return on that? Am I getting a 10x return on whatever I'm spending? So you go and put a B next to anything that, hey, you know what? I'd really like to keep that, but I need to see if it's worth it. And then C, you put a C next to anything that is like a luxury. A C next to anything that you don't really need, but you just love. Oh, and then there's a D. You put a D next to anything that you go, I don't even know what this is. I don't even know what it is. It usually ends in 99 cents, by the way. And then here's what you do. All the D's, everything you said, I don't even know what this is, it's out. You get rid of it. You go figure out in your email, you have to dig through to figure out how to unsubscribe, and you probably have to click 16 things to unsubscribe, and you get rid of it. And you'll have those things that you're paying iTunes $1.99 a month for an app that you don't even have on your phone anymore that your kid downloaded. And then you got mad at your kid for downloading it, grounded him for a week and took away their phone, but you're still paying the $1.99. You get rid of all that. The C stuff that's a luxury, well, you got to decide, do I really need that luxury? I'm not telling you not to have fun in your world, but you got to ask, do I really need that? And then the B's, you got to go back and figure out, are these things earning its keep? And I would say you want a 10 times return for anything you're investing in your business. Is it earning its keep? And then an A, you got to keep it, but you ask, can I renegotiate it? Can I go back and renegotiate this? Now, when Terry and I did this 2 years ago, we cut $2,300 a month between business and personal expenses. Most of it was in the C and D category. So there was one thing I found, I'm embarrassed to tell you what it is, so I'm not going to, that we've been paying for like 6 years, that we didn't even know what it was, remember signing up for it, but every month, right? And you all don't judge me, okay? But you all have that stuff. Go do that, get your expenses in order, because what Gary says on page 31 is this: in growing times, we tend to become profitable with positive cash flow and loose with financial decision-making. We review the bottom line, see a profit, trust all is well, and fail to scrutinize the detail. The fact is that for all of its positive indicators, profit can also give us a false reading. And when we allow an increase in our business profits to convince us that we're doing really well, well, then we mistakenly justify our increased expenses of, quote, the cost of doing business. And we say stupid things. He doesn't say stupid things in the book. I'm adding stupid. We say stupid things like it takes money to make money. Go back and look and make sure it's earning its keep. Okay, that is tactic number 2, which is remargining your business. Let's go to tactic number 3, which is do more with less, and that's leverage. And the reason I'm giving you an overview of many of these is because we just won't have the time to chunk down all of them during this workshop. We're going to go deep on 3 to 4, but we're not going to have time to do all. So leverage is this. And what Gary, Jay, and Dave teaches here is to do more with less and build core competencies around what really matters and associate with people who are on the same page as you. Here's the thing, page 37. When a market shifts, your organization must shift. This is your opportunity to evaluate, upgrade, and top grade your business. Now, we are in a fascinating time right now when it comes to finding leverage. I would suggest that every single one of you write down, shift page 42 and 43, especially if you have administrative assistants or you've got buyer agents or anybody on your organization who's helping you. These are the 7 steps to a talent shift. And you right now got to work extra hard to find people who are bought into your vision. I'd highly recommend that you study pages 42 and 43 for the 7 steps to a talent shift. Tactic number 4, find the motivated. Now, we spent some time this morning or earlier today talking about finding the motivated. Chris talked about the equity analysis. And then we talked about the seller seminar or seller workshops, and we talked about farming. Look, we've got to shift our lead generation gears into our lead generation activities into the highest gear possible. And with that said, I want to read something to you, and it's one of my favorite sections of the Shift book, and we'll go through this chapter pretty quickly because we spent some time on it earlier today, and we're going to cover more tomorrow. But I do want to read this piece. It's page 72 and 73 of Shift, and here's what it says. At the risk of being blatantly obvious, I feel compelled to point out that in order for you to truly be a successful lead generator, you must actually do lead generation. You must do it a lot. You can't do it one day here and one day there. You can't do it an hour here and an hour there. An inconsistent approach can get you leads, but it won't give you anywhere near the number of leads you'll need when a market shifts. He goes on to say, you must do it several hours every day. You must do it every work day of your career. You must ramp it up and keep it up. And to do this, you must subscribe to one simple belief, that dealing with business never takes precedence over finding business, never. We got to do it first. And he says the number one challenge that you face will not be your mindset and it will not be your expenses. It will be this: consistently doing lead generation activities over time. This is the one true challenge that all real estate agents face and the number one stumbling block that knocks most out of the game. Now listen to this sentence very carefully. Not getting lead generation done day in and day out may suffice in a hot market, but it will put you out of business in a cold one. Now listen to that again and listen to the words. Not getting lead generation done day in and day out may suffice in a hot market. So when I hear that, I go, we're in a hot market. So your business might be really awesome and your business might not be awesome if you're not lead generating. Maybe you are not lead generating every day, but yet you're hitting all your goals. Maybe you aren't lead generating every day and you're not hitting all your goals. Who knows? But he says, if you don't lead generate every day, it will put you out of business in a cold one. That's why we'll spend more time on lead gen tomorrow. I'm excited about that. Next one is lead follow-up. And what they say is called getting to the table. And it's the effort you give to converting leads must match the effort that you give to generating them. The key piece is leads that become timely appointments are what really matters. And you've got to follow up with the people who come your way. We'll talk more about that one tomorrow as well. Let's go next. Catch people in your web. You know, it says here, and I love it, it says a website is a tool for you to offer consumers what they want in exchange for what you want. Remember MOFR. What you want is bringing people into the conversation about buying and selling real estate. And we've got to remember, when they go online, a seller wants to know how much their home is worth, and a buyer wants to know what homes are for sale. Your website should do both of those things. Next tactic is tactic number 7. It's pricing. And he says, our goal in representing a seller in a shift is to use pricing to empower them. This is your opportunity to remember that in every market, there's homes that are in the market and out of the market. And you want to explain And I think the key conversation here is, hey, I know everybody is telling you the market is hot and everything is selling. Let me give you reality. And you go through and say, here's how many homes are on the market. Here's how many are selling. And you give them reality. Number 8, stand out from the competition. Now, you heard earlier today that sometimes people say, hey, I need to get the house ready. And maybe in this market, you don't. Like, you might not have to update the kitchen and the bathroom and do landscaping to sell it right now. But in a buyer's market, you may. You want to be ready for that. Tactic number 9 is creating urgency. This is specifically with buyers, but we'd say it's both. You cannot create urgency if there isn't a good reason for you to do so. I'm excited. Tomorrow, Charles is going to talk about how we create urgency with buyers. But it comes down to this, page 179 of Shift. Buyers need, and sellers as well, buyers and sellers need professional advice in a shift more than ever. The challenge is most don't realize it. They read the newspapers, the magazines, listen to the news, talk to family and friends. They form an opinion. So far, so good. The problem is they haven't gotten the story. You know, Gary said at Family Reunion, our job as a real estate professional is to provide perspective to potential buyers and sellers about the market. To provide perspective. Remember that. We'll talk more about it tomorrow. Number 10 is expand the options, which is creative financing. You know, you are not a lender. Your job is to be in relationship with lenders who can help you with that. Tomorrow, we'll have a representative from Keller Mortgage on to kind of walk you through things you should know in the mortgage arena right now. Number 11 is master the market of the moment. Now, in the book, it's about short sales, foreclosures, and REOs, because in 2008 and 9 and 10, that was the market of the moment. But it's not the market of the moment right now. Know what it is in your area and help people through it. And then finally, tactic 12 is bulletproofing the transaction. You only get paid if the deal closes. We're going to spend like 35 minutes tomorrow on bulletproofing with Tony Baroni's team in Tampa. All right, so those are the 12 tactics, and I wanted to give you an overview of those tactics. Put your ahas in the chat from that, by the way. Put your ahas in the chat from what you've gotten from the tactics. And so here's the deal. We've laid a ton of foundation today. What we need to do now is help you know if you're winning. And the only way you can tell if you're winning is if you know your numbers. Now, the challenge with some of this is, let me go up here. The challenge, George, can we put the screen back up? Because the challenge with this is knowing numbers for a lot of us doesn't come natural. And this is where we've got to have our conversation about going from E to P. This is one of my favorite things I've ever learned from Gary Keller through the 6 personal perspectives, and that is this. We all have natural ability to do some things. And by the way, when our natural ability gives us drive and enthusiasm and gets us excited every day, and we follow our intuition and what we think is going to work. And that natural ability will only take us so far. And then what happens is we hit a ceiling of achievement. You see it right there, a fundamental ceiling of achievement. We hit that. And when we hit that, we have 2 choices. The first choice, by the way, that most of us make is we go through a period of resignation, disappointment, and frustration. If you in your business at any point are feeling frustration, resignation, or disappointment, all that means, that's actually a great thing. I just want to be real transparent with you. You cannot grow until you are disappointed, frustrated, or frustrated about something. Otherwise, there's no reason to grow. So when you feel disappointment and resignation and frustration, celebrate that. Because it means you've hit a ceiling and it's time for you to grow. But what most people do when they experience frustration and resignation and disappointment is they move to greener pastures. They say things like, I didn't really want to grow a team anyway. Maybe I need to go to another real estate company. You don't. Maybe I need to get out of the business. You don't. What you just need to do is have a breakthrough. You got to have a breakthrough and get out of your E, which stands for entrepreneurial style, or think natural behavior. You got to get out of your E. You got to break through the ceiling and move into P, which stands for purposeful. Now, in order to do that, there's only 3 ways that you can go from E to P: training, coaching, consulting. What training are you taking? You're in this one right now. Who's coaching you? Because every single one of you on this call should have a coach. If your GCI every year is 150,000 or more, then it's not really optional. You should be in mastery coaching with MAPS. If it's between 75,000 and 150,000, it's not really optional. You should be in breakthrough coaching with MAPS. And if your GCI is under 75,000, it's not really optional. You should be in productivity coaching in your market center. Everybody has a coach. Or you can be a for sale by owner and not hire a professional to help you grow. That's fine too. But we always know that for sale by owners, on average, sell the home for less than those that list with an agent. So if you're going to go from E to P, you got to get into training, coaching, and consulting. I just gave you the breakdown. 150,000 or more is mastery coaching with MAPS. 75 to 150,000 is breakthrough coaching with MAPS, and below 75,000 is productivity coaching in your market center. None of those things are free. Run, don't walk, and sign up and move forward, because that's how you break through your ceiling. The other thing, though, is because that allows you to get focus, apply strategy, apply models, and apply systems and accountability. Well, here's the thing. We've got training that can help you in some of these areas. And that's why I'm excited to bring our next two guests on. And this is Janelle and Haley. They're from our enablement team at Keller Williams University. And the reason I asked them to come on right here is because one thing we got to know is, what are our goals, and do we know our numbers, and are we on track to reach those goals? And this team can help you do that. They can help you figure some of that stuff out. Now, Janelle, we're a little early, so I'm bringing you in, and poor Haley's not here yet, but that's all right. She'll be here. So we can rock and roll. Janelle, let's get started with you. Will you introduce yourself? Because here comes Haley. The truth is, in fact, put in the chat and tell me how many of you have never heard of the enablement team from KWU before. Would you put in the chat yes or no? Yes, you've heard of it. No, you haven't. I'm curious, because Janelle and Haley, you are, and by the way, the entire enablement team Shirley runs, you are the best kept secret that we no longer want to be a secret at Keller Williams, because
we don't.
You are helping people achieve their goals. And the reason I wanted you to come on is, and I'll stop the screen share because it freaks George out. The reason I wanted you to come on was to talk a little bit about, in fact, I'm just going to turn it over to you, and you're going to talk with us about knowing your numbers and understanding your numbers, and how Command can be your partner in that, and then tell them about some stuff they can do with you for free. So Janelle, would you introduce yourself to everybody first for us?
Yes, absolutely. Well, James, first of all, thank you so much for having us on here today. We're really honored, and it's a real pleasure. And we want to help everybody quit talking about it and start doing. So pulling from earlier, and we are here to help with that. So before we get into all of that, a little bit about us. My name is Janelle, and I'm the enablement manager here on the wonderful and lovely KWU Enablement Tech Training team. And I'm joined by Haley, who's one of our senior training coordinators. And really, on this enablement tech training team, we really use the knowledge that we've gained from working with thousands of agents and leaders out in the field, and essentially package it up and then distribute it back out in other engaging ways like trainings or Connect Live or Facebook Lives. And we really want to help you all solve your business challenges and boost your productivity using the KW technology. So that's it, James. We want to understand people's businesses at that deeper level and how the technology is going to be solving those problems. So today,
I love it. And you do all of those things, which is amazing. So,
yeah.
So here's what I want you to do. I want you to run with it and show them some of the stuff they don't know about, some things they need to know, and how you can help. So I'm turning it over. Ladies, take it away.
We got it. Thank you, James. So today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going over a couple applets that are really going to be helping you set, track, and monitor your business. So you're in the know. And really, that's sometimes half the battle, right? Like, where am I? What do I have going in? Do I even have enough people in my database to support the goals that I'm setting for myself? Just what does it look like? I have a million things on different sticky notes and notebooks and stuff laying around my car or the office or wherever. So we want to help you get some of that organization, some of that tracking, some of that setting done within Command. So Haley is actually going to be taking us through a couple of the applets here. And Haley, why don't you go ahead and take us through?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Happy to be here. Good afternoon, everybody. I like what James and Janelle said. There are lots of different pieces of Command that you might not know exist. And that's what really our team is passionate about. So today we're going to be diving into 3 different applets. The first one is going to be the reports applet, and I promise it's more exciting than it sounds. This is where you can really set up your goals and monitor them. We're going to dive into the contacts applet. This is where you can really find holes in your database and use a couple of our smart tools to help you maintain touch points and build strong relationships with clients. And arguably, the next applet we're going to go into is the most important, Janelle, and that's the opportunities applet. That's where you get paid. That's where all the fun transaction happens. So we want to dive in there and talk about how you can really customize that transaction management while making sure really each consumer gets that white glove service. So with that being said, are we ready to jump in? Okay, I'm going to go.
Let's do it.
I was like, I'm going to take it as you're ready to rock and roll. I'm about to share my screen. And when I do, I'm just going to take us first to the dashboard, because in case you've never been to that reports applet, I want to make sure you know how to navigate to it. So I'm greeted by my dashboard. I'm going to go ahead and lean on my red trusty KW square, and I'm going to use that to allow me to navigate into the reports applet. Now, as we mentioned, and as we're really diving in here, the reports applet is really your go-to place to monitor your business, and not only on a holistic level, but really a granular one as well. So you can really see the breakdown of your efforts, and you might notice that this screen here looks a little bit familiar. It is going to be automatically on your homepage as a widget, but as you scroll down a little bit further here, you can really start to see and filter by which activities are logged into Command and how often you actually engage with your clients. Now, sometimes agents will tell me, I engage with my clients, I have touch points with them a lot more frequently than this. Why aren't those numbers reflected? And really that's because you haven't logged those activities into Command. And we're going to dive a little bit into that, but really the point here is you can gain a lot of insight into how you want to run your business and the reporting of the business based on what you put into Command. So I like to work smarter, not harder. I don't know about you, Janelle.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's so cool about this is that I really am able to have that real-time tracking too, Haley. So as I'm going through and I'm doing my activities and I'm checking things off and I'm setting my goals, I can really see where I'm at. So if I need to turn it up a little bit or if I'm good, we never really want to take our foot off the gas here, but I at least can see, hey, I know what I need to do to help me reach that goal, because there's nothing worse than coming into your system and saying, I know I need to do something today, but I don't really know what I need to work on. And Command is really telling me that. I could start by, Janelle, you need to build out neighborhoods here. You need to find home anniversaries. Like the system is telling me the things that I need to do. And it's amazing for me just simply using it.
So. Absolutely. And I love that you mentioned home anniversaries, because a lot of agents that do come to our trainings, they let us know, hey, maybe in a post-closing smart plan, or maybe I can develop a process that I can add people's home anniversaries as my workflow. So developing these, and after establishing where you can see where these key pieces of information come from, you can then start to adopt that into your business and even, grow that relationship even further.
Well, Haley, this looks pretty complicated, right? So I might be looking at this being like, oh no, but Command is going to make it pretty easy for me, right? Like I just go through a simple kind of Kelly guide and I set up my goals, and it's pretty straightforward, I would assume, right?
Absolutely. It's so funny that you mentioned that, Janelle, because you can actually set up your goals in Command through this goals tab at the top. And we're going to come right back to reports because I don't want to ignore that. But notice if I click into this third tab, I have my goals versus actual. Now, if you come here, and mine's loading still, but if you come here and you notice that you do see all zeros, it's probably because you haven't yet set up your goals in Command. Now, you are more than welcome to come to the far right-hand side and dive into those goal settings, but I might know of a team that has a class or two that will help you develop those goals. So can you tell us a little bit about those?
Yes, of course. I feel like I know a few people, but of course, enablement tech training is going to have some really great programs that is going to help you not only set your goals, but really kind of take you through how you're going to be achieving those as well. So right now, if you're watching, there's going to be some links that are being dropped from Meg and Alyssa on our team, and it's really just going to be the link tree that you can click on and go and register for Implement Your Plan. This is a free training, Haley, where you guys are going to take me through everything with my goals, get them set. We know we're into March, but it's not too late, guys. So let's get into this. Let's set these goals. Let's be on track.
Absolutely. Now, please sign up for our classes. We'd be happy to have you, but you can have that ability right here if you just dive in there and set those up yourself. So really either way is going to give you that insight that you're craving to develop those processes and increase your conversion. That's really what it's all about, right? So I want to navigate over here to this reports tab, and specifically notice if I click into this, I do have 3 different reports here. The first one I really want to drill down to though is going to be this goals report. So once you've set up your goals in here, and I am just going to give it a little bit of a refresh here so I can see what I have working with, you'll be able to see down to each phase of the transaction which pieces of information and that insight in terms of percentage to goal and actual. So right now it's giving me a little bit of an issue, but if you do set up those goals and you want to dive into those reports, these are going to be key pieces of information that you can use as a springboard in your business. How close am I to my percent to goal? Well, it's March, so I better get a move on if I'm, 1 to 2%. Or maybe, and this is also something else you can do, reassess your goals in the middle of the year. Be realistic with yourself. If it's not something that you're going to be able to achieve, maybe you do want to adjust that. So you always have those abilities. Here we are. So I can see from this report the volume within each of these phases of the opportunity, as well as the average time. So really a lot of breakdown comes into play when looking at this opportunities report. I am going to go back here because I do want to dive into this goals report too, because then you will be able to see. Okay, I had my hopes up because the other one loaded. If you're following along now in command, you should be able to see that information. A lot of people neglect this area. Maybe they're not sure that it exists. So all you have to do is hop into reports and then click into that second tab. Now, I know we mentioned that third tab in terms of goals and setting those up. We also do have emails. So just as a reminder, in case we have agents watching that aren't familiar or don't know this, you actually get 5,000 free emails a month from Command. So really leaning on that to maybe increase the relationships that you already have with your database, that really goes a long way. In terms of emails and in terms of building those relationships, make sure you have a value add in that email that tends to go a long way. And really the hardest part about sending emails is getting people to open them, right? So make sure you have a catchy title at the top, and that's really just going to, at the bottom line, increase that mind share for when they want to buy or sell real estate. We want them to think of you.
Love that, Haley. So this is pretty awesome. And obviously we could spend the next couple hours talking about this. We get real excited and passionate about it all, but right. So now what you're telling me is I can get in here, I can set my goals, I can really have a good picture of where I need to go and what I need to do. But how do I know if my database or my business is actually going to support some of these goals that I'm setting for myself? Like, because I know you mentioned, it's okay if we have to reassess things, or once we get rolling, maybe I overshot a little bit. Maybe I'm not being aggressive enough. So what's kind of the next step with this?
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head when you said business. Our database is our business. So I'm going to go ahead and move into the contacts applet and just show you a couple of tools that you can, again, use to develop those work processes, to develop those relationships. And at the end of the day, convert those into transactions. So when I come in and when I look at my database, the importance of really adding contacts and tracking activities is to build those relationships. And the activities you add here, as we saw, will actually roll up into reports. So if I'm looking at my database as a whole, I do want to just point out a couple of filters that you can lean on. The first one being just your leads filter. If I want to come in here and I want to say, do I even have enough leads in my database to support the goals that I'm trying to achieve? This is that one-stop shop for this. Well, it's a two-click shop essentially, but you'll come in here at the far right. I have my leads only. And once I hit apply, I can really then zoom into those people that might need extra attention, might need some, reeling in, as it were. So this is a really good area where you can, make sure that you're setting yourself up not to be disappointed at the end of the year, looking at those goals. Really a very important, I know, we have that built-in leads option there, but other ways that we would highly recommend you utilize your database to group people and to target specific people are to use tags. And a lot of agents use these in a myriad of ways, really. But I think in terms of workflow and in terms of reaching people on a massive scale in a short period of time, I do want to go ahead and show you here by filtering a tag and using what we call a bulk activity. So really, you're building those relationships and you're logging that activity that's going to go into reports in one-stop shop. So first, I'm going to clear my leads. I'm going to come in here, and what if I wanted to reach out to all of my sellers for 2022? So I'm going to just pick on that tag here. I'm going to hit apply. And now very quickly, I can target these 16 people by selecting this list and either adding them to a smart plan, texting them if I'm using Twilio, or maybe I did something with all of my 2022 sellers and I now want to go back and add that activity. So you don't have to go through or dive into each contact card to add those. I can do it very swiftly by just coming in here and saying, maybe we just chatted about their listings. And I can easily add that activity. I can also come to the what we refer to as the meatball menu over here and add an activity as a one-off as well. So very easy to isolate, target, and add those activities, which what does it really boil down to? Bonding and creating those relationships.
If we're looking back, Haley, at the previous screen when we were talking about setting our goals, everything really starts with the lead. So you're absolutely right. I want to make sure that when I'm coming in here, I'm looking at how many people do I have as leads that I then have to convert to contacts, that I then convert to transactions, that I then convert to the next thing and the next thing. So absolutely. I love, that it makes it easy for me to just get a quick little snapshot of that. And then if I don't have enough leads or, the numbers are a little off when I'm starting to compare what's in my database to what's on my report screen, then that can tell me what I need to do next. Do I need to run more campaigns? Do I need to do some more lead generation? What do I need to kick up? And the system is just telling me that. So I love how easy and everything's just kind of right at my fingertips, and I can do the tagging and it can keep me on top of everything. So
absolutely. And speaking of easy, I would be remiss if I didn't mention some of the built-in smart views that are already at your fingertips. So even if I was showing you all this and you're thinking, oh man, Haley, I don't have any tags. I'm a new agent and I haven't really started diving into any of this. Not to worry at all. So at the top middle here, it's going to default all of your contacts, and you'll see it says Smart View All Contacts. So we do have built-in Kelly Smart Views that you can really lean on to develop those work processes as well. And the one that I want to highlight right now is Who Should I Call? So Command is going to show you contacts that you've not contacted in the last 30 days. So
okay, I'm interrupting because
sure.
This is the whole point. And this is what I want everyone to get. I know this probably messes George up now that I'm talking, but here's the thing. The whole point of what we've heard today is that you must be in relationship with your database. Chris told you, if you're going to do the equity analysis, you got to follow a system and you got to know who you're talking to. We heard if you're doing a seller workshop, there's a system, you got to know who you're talking to. And what happens is now Command or whatever CRM you use, right? You use Command, we say use that because we got it for you, but whatever you use, you've got to communicate with it in a way. And what you're saying is I can log in now and it will tell me, you haven't talked to this person in forever. Get your hiney up and make a call, right? Like it's
Exactly.
just, we got to be able to do that. Ladies, how important is that for someone trying to run their business?
Extremely important, James. And you know what's more important is not having this and not knowing where it is, but also having this information be wrong because you did not log the activities. So this smart view is only going to be smart for you if it's showing you accurate data based on what you've logged in Command.
All right. So here's the thing about this. It's no different than when you go to like your hairstylist. I know, Janelle Haley, you're surprised to know I have a stylist, okay? And you can tell by looking right here. Actually got my hair cut today. And here's the thing. I remember I'd go in and I'd go see Rachel. And when I go in and sit down with her, Haley and Janelle, when I go sit down, and maybe this happens for you too, I don't know. She goes, "Oh, how was your trip to Disney?" And I'm going, how does she remember I went to Disney? Like how does that happen? And it's because she's gone into the database and she wrote down the notes from our conversation. You're only as smart as what the database allows you to be, because after we get past about 4 or 5 people, we cannot remember what we talked about and who wants what. Your database is your partner. Now, the problem, I know this is not what we said we were going to do, but I get a little wound up. The problem is, and I'm going to go back into the shift book again, and it says, I got to find the page, but he said that you may, I don't even know where it is. Okay, hold on, just a minute. I know this is so great. This is amazing television, Grace. I just need Grace Vroom to understand that this is the most amazing television we've ever seen. It says that, I don't know what page it's on, that not getting lead generation done day in and day out may suffice in a hot market, but it will put you out of business in a cold one. Okay. Communicating and recording things in your database, like choosing to not do that, choosing to not put notes in your database and not schedule follow-ups in your database, boy, it may work in a hot market, but it'll put you out of business in a cold one. If you are not keeping track of your conversations and what's going on, you cannot possibly be in relationship. I just wanted to get that in, and then I won't interrupt again until the next time I interrupt, but I had to get that in.
But James, if I'm not doing those things, how do I know if I'm even on track for my goals? Like, you know what I mean? It's so much bigger than just putting in a note that, oh, they're going to Disney this weekend, and next time I talk to them, I need to ask how that is. It's like, I don't know. It's like a domino effect, you know?
It totally is.
It's so much more. So
and that's why
James,
you're
remember
here,
her
and I'll
asking.
quit interrupting, but you keep rolling. But again, Meg, do me a favor, Meg, in the Facebook, will you drop the link in the chat again, Meg, for how they can sign up for the full program these ladies do, because it's free, it doesn't cost me anything, and it'll help. So Meg's going to put that in the chat again. All right, go ahead, ladies.
Absolutely. And, we do have one more applet to get to, so I am going to go ahead and leave the contacts applet as it were. But just to highlight those of you who are watching this, we've only highlighted a few ways that the contacts applet can help you stay informed about your database so that you can build those relationships that really are necessary to meet your goals. So with that being said, though, I am going to go ahead and, or Janelle, is there anything else that you wanted to add here before we go ahead and transition to opportunities?
Nope. Just another plug, sign up for our training because we really dive into this, y'all, and we share with you tips and tricks of things that you can do to help reach out and how you can track all of that. So yeah.
While we're talking about classes really quickly, then we have another one that's also free. It's a little bit more of a time commitment, but if maybe you're new to Command or starting to learn the foundations of Command, we have one called Find Fast Wins. And that's essentially exactly what that class shows you how to do. So guilty, had to plug in that one as well. So we've set up our goals. We're staying on track with our reports and looking at our goals and our settings, and everything is set up. We're making our relationships with our contacts, but ultimately what we want to do is convert those into transactions. So I'm going to go ahead and hop into the opportunities applet here. And I just want to highlight and make sure we're all aware of these amazing transaction management pipelines and really how you can manage your transactions inside of opportunities. I can't tell you how many agents I talk to, Janelle, that'll say, well, I put that on a whiteboard, but it's been scratched out for 3 years, or I have about 50 Post-it notes around my computer. This is where you can put everything that you're already doing into command, and then really what it helps is maintain that every client is going to get that white glove service that you gave to the last client. And in order to do that, going back to even contacts, hey, you're only one human. Let's go ahead and put these activities in there. Same rules apply when we're really talking about opportunities. Because, and if this is not familiar, we have these 5 phases. So cultivate, appointment, active, under contract, and closed. This is not customizable. However, in between these phases, we have stages and checklists, both of which are customizable and both of which really work for the building blocks between the phases. So when you are looking at this dashboard, just to give you an overview, I can easily see how many, looking at this number here, transactions I have within each given phase. And sometimes we talk to agents and they're not sure exactly when to create that opportunity. So really the trigger for that, and if you have your own, then that is amazing. But we like to say when someone raises their hand and says, I want you as my agent, at this point you have them in your contact database, you've been building that relationship with them, maybe they're on a couple of smart plans. As soon as they really solidify that they want you and they're ready to either buy or sell, that is a great opportunity. No, I'm just kidding. That's a great way to decide that they're ready to actually become a transaction. So what I want to go ahead and do is I'm going to dive into this active phase here and just give you a little bit of a breakdown of what we were referring to in terms of those building blocks. So I have, and these are already built in, y'all, staging and showing, or showing, maybe I edited that, guilty, negotiations. And as you go along, these are going to be more concrete steps. Notice I have this horizontal bar. So if I want to create more stages in this active phase, I can definitely do that. Now, in order to, all I need to do is come up here and click into edit stages. This is going to allow me to really get granular with each one of my transactions that fall into the next stage and phase that I have now edited. These are not something that are automatically going to be populated like those stages are. So this is where you gather all of those Post-it notes. This is where you look at that old sheet that you wrote maybe 5 years ago, come in here, dust those off, and apply those inside command so that every opportunity or every transaction that comes in these pipelines will have those ready to go checklist items that then you can use to lean on to move them through that pipeline.
Okay, Haley, so what you're telling me, because this is a lot of really, really great stuff. So I have my processes in my head or in a Google sheet or in a notebook somewhere. And now I can actually get it into command, and command can keep me organized with, we have all of those big phases up at the top, which I can't edit, but that's fine. And then underneath that, I have all of my stages, which I can edit and I can make custom to me. And then I can take it that one step further and start to do some of my checklists. So then at any given point, if I see that James is somewhere, say in my active and he's in my showings, I know what the checklist items are that I need to get done to get him to that next stage or even that next phase, right?
Absolutely. And that's exactly what we want to showcase here. So I know looking at those edit stages, you're thinking, where does this apply to the actual transaction? So just to give you a breakdown of that, and I love that you did that because it is a little bit of an opportunities inception. We have those phases, and notice I'm in the active phase. So I'm showcasing here now all the stages within it. And then these are where the checklist items actually live. So I know Alicia John needs these steps completed before I can move her then to the next stage. So this is where it can really be utilized to keep you on track within each opportunity so that no one falls through the cracks.
And what I love about this too, Haley, is that I can kind of test this out, right? Like, so if I think I know what my process is now, I get some opportunities here. I start moving them through. things change, the market changes, the demand is different, steps
Absolutely.
change. It may be different because of the type of transaction or the type of buyer or seller that I'm working with, or whatever the case is. I can do some ad hoc checklists and everything, but the key here is that everything is editable. So don't feel like when you get in here and you start to kind of set yourself up that it's kind of set it and you're stuck with it. So if something's not working, change it, get in here, make updates, rearrange some things. If you're like, I keep having to go back and then forward and then back again, nothing's set in stone.
Absolutely. This is always going to be customizable for you. And I love that you mentioned that kind of ad hoc checklist item because, it's not all one size fits all. We talked about developing those processes and, of course, having that white glove service. But if maybe this person needs something special, I can add checklist items on the fly really easily just by going into that actual transaction and typing in that checklist item. As a bonus here, just because I'm looking at it, and I would be very sad if we went through this call and I didn't mention it. Notice if I hover over this right side here, I have a set due date. So if you end up setting due dates here, they'll actually go into your opportunity tasks, which is an added bonus. That means I might not have to come in here every day and see exactly what I need to do because I can look at my tasks and see that more on a holistic level before diving into the opportunities applet. Now, a big piece, a very important piece in any type of transaction, Janelle, is going to be a documents tab. So, and I am going to just go ahead and dive in here because I do want to mention within these actual opportunities, I know that y'all have seen these dates. I know it. And a lot of agents tend to not put these dates in here. After today, this area might look a little bit familiar, and it's because we saw them in the opportunities reports. So going now, knowing that this is not a dead area, all of this rolls into reports, all to give you that insight. I'm going to cross my fingers and hope that, now maybe we can come in here and add some of these now that you know what kind of value they bring. Now, I am going to go over just to this documents tab here because I do know that this is a very important area for our agents. So, signing digitally, whether you're using DocuSign or Dotloop, we do have a couple of different DocuSign classes, all of which are free. So I definitely want to encourage you to take those if that's something that you're, maybe changing over, maybe your market centers changing that over. So please sign up for our DocuSign classes as well, because those are amazing. So just wanted to go ahead and bring you all here and show you that, because this is where you're going to create that true bridge between Command into DocuSign, pull them back, and then that's when you can submit to your market center and get paid, which is arguably the most exciting part. And I do want to at least mention, implementing those custom stages and checklists will really help you streamline your business. We know that. Now, the insight from the transaction, so those details that we talked about, will roll back into reports and give you the information you need to see. So really all of this goes to show, no matter what applet you're in, is really to see what kind of relationships you're building, what kind of transactions you're having, and really ultimately, is it going to roll up into the goals that you want to achieve?
Perfect. And the cherry on top, I feel like, is that we're still in one system, y'all. Like, we're not in all of these other, okay, open this window. Now let's log into this system. Let's check what that number is. We're literally in one system that's taking me from setting my goals, knowing what my goals are, and then having all of the info rolling up and telling me what I need to do to actually achieve said goals that I just set.
One-stop shop, Janelle.
Love it. Well, really, this is all that we wanted to show James today. So we wanted to let everyone know that this is here. It's at their fingertips. It's accessible. It's not scary. It is something that we can pick apart piece by piece, step by step. You have enablement team here by your side, next to you. We want to take you through this. Our team loves this stuff. I mean, if you couldn't tell by Haley's enthusiasm and all, like, this is our bread and butter. We love all the technology. So we want to be that partner with everybody out there that wants to dive into this and start looking at their business a little differently.
Well, I'm so thankful that you both were here to share. At the end of the day, your business is your database. And if we aren't in a constant flow with our database, then it's going to be really hard to have a steady, successful business. And right now, it matters maybe more than ever, as Jason walked through how to be unique with your database and check in, and using Command or whatever CRM you use. We're highlighting Command because that's the one we've got, and Haley and Janelle are experts on it. And yet using your database is leverage, right? It's the 3 L's: leads, listings, and leverage. And leverage is people, systems, and tools. Well, you've got Command as a system and a tool to support you. So what I'd recommend, and I know we'll put it in there again, you guys do so much free stuff. There's stuff they can pay, and if they want to go even deeper as well, they can totally do that. Yet you do so much free stuff, and I wanted you to take a half hour on this shift workshop to really point out some of those things, because look, let's adopt some of the tools that we have to help your business be better. Is there any final message, Haley or Janelle, you want to share with the people before we kick it?
If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, any how do I do this in Command, please email learncommand@kw.com. Our team is ready and waiting for you.
Well, it's important to remember that anytime we learn something new, we experience stress and frustration. And most of the time, and Janelle and Haley, you can tell us, most of the time you hear from people when they're frustrated, right? Why? I can't figure out how to use this, and why isn't that working? And usually you teach them how it's done. Like the Command works fine. It's showing them how to navigate that and how to use it. It makes me think of, real quick, we'll wrap up with this. Do you all know The Amazing Race? Are you familiar with The Amazing Race, that show on the CBS? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
I want to be on that show, but I want to wait for like 20 more years when my daughter is 30 and I'll be like 65, and she'll be like, Dad, come on. And I'm like bringing up, and she's like, come on, Dad. But I want to be on that show with Naomi. But we were watching an episode yesterday, and they had to drive from like one spot to another, except they were in Scotland. So you drive on the right. So you get in Scotland, and the steering wheel's on what would be the passenger side here. But then here's the deal, Haley and Janelle. It was a stick shift. So now I can drive. Can either of you drive a manual? Can either of you drive a stick shift, Janelle or Haley?
No.
I promise you, Grace Vroom totally can. But here's the thing: the stick shift, it's all backwards. Like I can drive a stick. I can put my foot on the gas and change the gear with my right hand. But could I put my hand on the steering wheel and my left hand to change gears? Like
No way.
That's so crazy and backwards. And you watch them start to try to drive these cars, and they're stalling out, whatever. But you know what? After about 15 minutes, they had it figured out. Like they were really stressed. The one couple like had to stop, and he got out of the car and like had to like, give me a minute. But then they got back in the car and he figured it out. Command is just like that. Command is like you've been driving the car the same way the entire time you've been driving, and now you get in and everything's flipped, but it'll take you 15 minutes and you'll figure it out. And the problem isn't the car. The problem is you just don't simply know how to do it yet. Haley and Janelle and everyone on the enablement team at KWU will help you figure out how to drive this car so that you can win your race. And I just made all of that up on the fly. That's a professional at work. Ladies, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having
James.
us. Bye,
You got
James.
it. You got it. I'm so proud of you. Thank you. I love Shirley, who leads up our enablement team, and everybody who's part of enablement at KWU. I want them to no longer be the best kept secret in Keller Williams, and I want you to leverage the support and training you can get from that group, because if you want to go from E to P, you need training and coaching and consulting to be able to do that. Okay, so I want to put a bow on today, and as we're doing that, I need you to put your ahas or questions or both in the chat. Both on, if you're watching on Connect, in Slido, and if you're watching on Facebook, in the chat, because we'll take a couple of minutes to share ahas and to answer any questions you have. But I want to read something to you again from Shift, and it's on page 26 of Shift, and it says this: in a shifted market, there is little room for mistakes, and that's the real challenge. The margin for error is very, very thin. We are in a market right now that many of us have never experienced before. You put a home on the market, it sells immediately. the margin for error is very, very thin. When you're working with your buyers right now, you got to move quickly or find properties that are off market or educate them at a level so they write the right kind of offers. When you're working with a seller, you've got to be able to walk them through their opportunities, help overcome their objections. Once you get it under contract, you got to keep it together. Tomorrow, you want to come back because we'll be back and better than ever tomorrow. Tomorrow is all about helping you get into action. So here's what's going to happen. You come to the same place you came today, Connect Live. So you go to kwconnect.com or Pivot Shift Ahead in the Facebook group. We're going to start at noon Central. Now, to help you make sure you know you're in the right place, we'll start some like fun little videos before that, 10 or 15 minutes before, but we'll start right at noon Central. At noon Central, I'm going to give you a very quick recap from today. Very, very quick. And then we're going to spend some time doing kind of a deep dive on lead generation and urgency and how important it is that you understand some key models and get some key activities done in the right way. So we'll do that right off the top. And then we're going to break it down into four buckets, right? The first bucket will be seller strategies. So we gave you the lead gen ideas for that today. So tomorrow, it's like after the lead gen. So we're going to talk to three people. Denny Grimes, who is a legendary agent, got a very successful team in the Fort Myers and Naples area of Florida. He's a MAPS coach and a BOLD coach. And he's going to go through kind of the common objections that potential sellers are giving right now. The most common one is, where am I going to go if I sell? And he's going to walk us through how to overcome that objection along with several others and the right kinds of conversations to have with people. And then we're going to move on to Jenny Wallach from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And Jenny is going to talk about, okay, once you've gotten the listing, you've overcome the objection. How do you leverage that listing to get more listings, right? What strategies do you use to turn one listing into 4 or 5? And then what service do you provide to a seller at such a high level, like what Jason talked about today, that they want to refer you to every person on the planet? And then we'll talk to Marcy Chambers Smith from Georgia. Listen to this. She listed a home that got 155 offers. And she's going to walk us through. I know a lot of us are dealing with multiple offers. She's going to walk us through the strategies to use right now in a multiple offer situation. All right, so that's that. Then we're going to bring in Charles Holloway. He is from the Hampton Roads area of Virginia. He's from Newport News. And we're going to bring him on and do an interview about working with buyers in this market. And his team does an amazing job. It's the Holloway experience. His team does an amazing job of educating buyers so they write fewer offers and get their offers accepted. So we're going to do that. Then we're going to do it bulletproof, the transaction session. And this is where we're going to bring Jeremy Ellis from Keller Mortgage on, along with Tony Baroni, Kate Conroy, and Lori Maggie from the Tony Baroni team to, again, walk us through how we're keeping the deal to close, because 20% are falling out right now. After that, Gary's going to join us. Gary Keller will be on to put this book in perspective and kind of move it into the 2020s and walk us through how to get into action right now. So we get about a half hour with Gary tomorrow afternoon to wrap up. And then finally, we'll spend 10 minutes with Sajid Patel to walk through now really taking everything we learned, packing it together, and how do we take action on that. It's been a great day. Let's go through a couple of things. And Grace, you can jump in too, because it seems like that people enjoyed today, Grace. Would that be accurate to say? The feedback, and Grace, can you unmute and turn on your camera? There we go. Grace,
Yes.
I so appreciate you. The feedback today, you told me, was amazing. People enjoyed the day.
Yes, everyone has loved it so much. Everyone's had great ahas. The fact that you all know what the enablement team is now is really exciting. So we've had a really engaged, fantastic group today.
Yeah, Grace, by the way, is the one who has to get all the people together to assemble all of this. She runs our Connect Live schedule and calendar and organizing what's on it and does a great job. George and Caitlin are here clicking all the crazy buttons to make sure we show up. Lisa's here from events who organized getting everybody on today. It's been amazing. You said some of the ahas. One of them, Grace, was somebody said not getting lead gen done day in and day out may suffice in a hot market, but it puts you out of business in a cold one. There are a lot of people that had ahas around lead generation, right?
Absolutely. And really just making it intentional, making that a daily effort, getting some organization and structure around that. There was a lot of ahas around just making sure that everything you're doing has that structure in general. And the way that you broke that down with panelists as well, I think was really helpful. I also have to say I'm wearing this down jacket because it's very cold inside where I am. I'm not in a tundra, it is Texas, but I still have to wear it because the air conditioning can get that insane.
We don't have any judgment around what you're wearing. This is a judgment-free zone. So I just want to tell you, it seems like people loved what Jason shared. And I know you were watching the chat. That's why I'm bringing you into this. You were watching the chat. What were some of the things you noticed about when Jason was on? What did people love? I know the being unique was a big deal.
Yeah. So being unique and being able to do things that are unique that don't take a ton of money, right? You can clean people's windows, but you can also reach out and do those care calls and have unique conversations and do that and sort of stand out in that very personalized way. If you just, if you get a little creative and you think a little bit harder about what people won't say no to, what people actually need and could really use your help with, you can get a lot done.
I love it. Last thing, and then we'll wrap up. This just came in on Facebook. I just saw it. Rick Spain said, I had no idea enablement existed. I'll definitely contact them to help me move forward. I know you saw a lot of that too in the chat. It says in the book, once you know, it's not about more knowing, right? It's about doing. Grace, we got to leverage the tools we've got. You worked so hard to put amazing stuff on Connect Live, and our enablement team does so much to try to help our people. We just got to plug into the tools that we have, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize it is actually here. It's right in front of you sometimes, and it can seem like I'm looking for the right thing. It's got to be in a more difficult spot, but truly, if you go to Connect, we have so much stuff there. We have so many trainings. You use that search button, and you can look for anything. You go to enablement, you sign up for something, you attend one class, you're going to come away with a whole mountain of knowledge. We have it. It's here for you. You just got to come to us.
Grace, you're the best. Everybody who's worked on this is awesome. And we're half done. We get to do this again tomorrow. And I'm telling you, Gary Keller on tomorrow. You don't want to miss Gary walking you through how to win in today's market. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Here's what I'd tell you to do. Run to your market center and tell everybody how amazing today was so they can go watch the recording, which will be available immediately. As soon as we sign off, it'll be available on Pivot Shift Ahead. We will talk about ahas from this call on tomorrow's 8 a.m. Eastern mastermind that we do in Pivot Shift Ahead and at pivotshiftcall.com. We'll share ahas from today, and then we'll be back and better than ever tomorrow with Denny and Jenny, and I guess your name has to end in some sort of E sound, right? Jenny and Denny and Gary and Tony and Jeremy and all these people. It's going to be amazing. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody. Have a good one. Bye-bye.